Chapter 1185. The Earth Dragon King turned into the Golden Light Dragon domain and blocked Sword Venerable Big Dipper and Zhu Yi. Meanwhile, the Blue Sky Dragon King attacked Emperor Qin's Stonefeather magic treasure on the Immortal Dragon City like a tidal wave. The Immortal Dragon City became silent, and its power kept decreasing. Facing the Blue Sky Dragon King, Stonefeather felt powerless. The Jade Dragon flames had already landed on the Immortal Dragon City. The Immortal Dragon City had a strong foundation, and even though the magic treasure was silent, it could still block the Blue Sky Dragon King's attacks. However, Emperor Qin Stonefeather could not receive the protection of the Immortal Dragon City. Although he was a Dao integration expert, he was not a match for the Blue Sky Dragon King, who was only one step away from the Dharma-ending realm. At the critical moment, Stonefeather did not have time to stop the ritual. His hands kept forming hand seals, and waves of magic power shot out, turning into a huge ball of light in the air. Following this, Stonefeather condensed his Dragon Emperor True Fruit. The five-colored light turned into golden Dao fruits that flew into the ball of light. The ball of light immediately began to change rapidly, and many bizarre images appeared within it. There were mountains and plains, but they were not scenes of Tianhuang mainland. That was Jingguan in the vast land of the Divine Prefecture. It was the fertile land within the Great Qin Empire's territory, and many of the Great Qin Empire's citizens lived there. Countless colorful formless currents rose up, turning into light dragons. These were the Great Qin dynasty's Dragon Vein Providence. These Dragon Vein Providence gathered towards the Great Qin dynasty's Xiling City. Xiling City seemed to have turned into a huge magic formation. Tens of thousands of Dragon Vein Providence hid within it, forming a network of light veins that flowed silently. The center of this magic formation was the Great Qin Imperial Palace's main hall. There was a smaller magic formation here that covered the entire palace. All the Dragon Vein Providence was gathered here, and the magic formation in the palace spun rapidly. A huge ball of light gradually formed above the magic formation, hiding the Dragon Vein Providence. As if passing through the endless void, the Dragon Vein Providence was brought before Emperor Qin Stonefeather. Through the Dragon Emperor True Fruit in the ball of light, it buffed Emperor Qin Stonefeather's body. Traveling through the void naturally could not compare to being in Western Tomb City. However, it still caused Qin Emperor Stonefeather's aura to surge wildly, exceeding his usual state. This allowed him to temporarily block the Jade Sky Dragon King. As the Blue Sky Dragon King roared, the scales on his body opened and closed. Large amounts of dark green light flashed, and it was as vast as the sea. In this dark green sea, one could see stars constantly rising and falling, causing the dark green sea to become clearer and clearer, but the color also became darker and darker. In the end, it was almost pure black, like a sea of ink. The violent waves swept downwards, instantly engulfing both Stonefeather and the ball of light. A large number of five-colored light dragons circled around Stonefeather's body, but when they were swept up by the ink sea, they immediately began to shatter. This black sea was the manifestation of the Blue Sky Dragon King pushing his Jade Dragon Flame to the extreme. He had also infused it with the power of the stars that he had refined. Wherever the Black Sea went, everything would be destroyed. The power of the Black Sea was even stronger than the Jade Treasure Light World. If Stonefeather didn't have the ball of light guiding the Divine Land's Dragon Vein aura to strengthen himself, he would have suffered the moment the Black Sea arrived. At this moment, he could only struggle with all his might. He was like a lone boat in a storm, about to be drowned at any time. The Black Sea kept melting away his Jade Sky Dragon King's Dharma powers. The speed was extremely fast, like rolling snow, and he was about to be engulfed. In the golden light realm formed by the Kun Dragon King, Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Celestial Big Dipper were also attacking the Dragon Domain Dharma treasure in front of them. After his attack missed, Zhu Yi transformed from the Wenhua Taiji painting's essence spirit into his human form again. His gaze was a little serious, and then he pointed a finger at his forehead. A small dot of light suddenly flew out from between Zhu Yi's eyebrows. That dot of light looked inconspicuous, but the moment it appeared, it attracted the attention of the Kun Dragon King and Sword Venerable Celestial Big Dipper. The golden light dragon domain formed by the Kun Dragon King shook. The dot of light flickered, and the light dissipated, turning into a black and white jade stone. That jade stone erupted with a shocking brilliance in the void. Suddenly, the sky was filled with light and clouds. The black and white light alternated, shaking the entire void. It was as if a yin and yang sun was slowly rising. Wherever the light reached, countless mysterious runes and diagrams densely covered the void, shaking the heaven and earth. In the next moment, the black and white light turned into a shocking rainbow that traversed the void. It was as if the entire golden light realm was divided into two. In that brilliance, there was a sky full of gods and Buddhas chanting together. Countless gods and Buddhas materialized and stood on the brilliance. The mysterious Gate Master's divine light of creation? Is that the crystal of his divine light of creation? The Kun Dragon King and Sword Venerable Celestial Big Dipper had fought with Lin Feng before. They immediately recognized the black and white brilliance that shocked them. It was Lin Feng's divine light of creation. Sword Venerable Celestial Big Dipper took a deep breath. Such a majestic power. How much divine light did he condense to form such a crystal? Even if he activated it with his real body, it might not be so powerful in a split second, right? Zhu Yi's expression was calm. He immediately activated the golden bridge of the Permitha realm to fuse with that majestic brilliance. The power between the two merged, and the momentum of the golden bridge of the Permitha realm became even more powerful. On top of the original 7 rings of light, an 8th ring of light had appeared, and there was even the vague appearance of a 9th ring of light. This was what Lin Feng had given him before he went to the Violet Mist Sea. It was to prevent great demons in the Dharma-ending realm from intercepting and killing him. Lin Feng had condensed the crystal of his divine light of creation before, but he had never spent so much effort. When Zhu Yi activated this crystal and fused it with the golden bridge of the Permitha realm, he could escape even if he encountered a great demon in the Dharma-ending realm. From Zhu Yi's point of view, he wasn't a stickler for rules. He would use the power that he should according to the situation. He wouldn't feel any psychological burden when he borrowed the power of his master, Lin Feng. But like Wang Lin, if it was a problem that he could solve by himself, he would always hope to solve it by himself. He wouldn't disturb Lin Feng. However, the situation had reached a critical moment. Zhu Yi couldn't care so much anymore. With the support of Lin Feng's divine light of creation, the golden bridge of the Permitha realm crossed the golden light dragon domain with a powerful momentum that transcended everything, shattering all the light dragons. Sword Venerable Tiangang also didn't hesitate at this moment. He once again exerted his full strength and displayed the essence of his swordsmanship and sword will. Once again, it turned into a distant galaxy formed by sword light and combined with Zhu Yi's golden bridge of the Permitha realm. The 3 great forces combined into one and bombarded the barrier that the Kunlun Dragon King had set up. The Kunlun Dragon King let out an indignant roar. The heavenly voice of the Dragon Emperor resounded throughout the void. The originally clear golden light dragon domain suddenly became turbid. Vital chi and demonic power intertwined in the domain, forming a collapsing trend. It was as if the boundless world was really going to be destroyed. The golden light dragon domain began to collapse. It pressed toward Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Tiangang who were in the middle. The terrifying force had far exceeded the destructive power of a medium-class world. However, the golden bridge and galaxy, which were surrounded by the black and white radiance, still managed to resist the collapse of the golden light dragon domain with a powerful force that transcended destruction and reached the Permitha realm. Finally, the golden bridge of the Permitha realm forced its way out of the collapsing golden light dragon domain. The Kunlun Dragon King's long roar sounded incessantly. The collapsing golden light dragon domain transformed in the void and instantly turned into the appearance of a golden-scaled primordial heavenly dragon. The Kunlun Dragon King's vitality was slightly injured when his defense was forcefully broken. However, what made him feel even worse was that when he came into contact with the black and white radiance, the wound on his broken dragon claw seemed to ache again. The face of the purple-robed young man who severed his dragon claw and dragon tail years ago appeared in front of the Kunlun Dragon King again. This made him furious. The Kunlun Dragon King, who was on the verge of going berserk, turned around and coiled his huge body around the Permitha Golden Bridge of the Permitha realm. The heavenly sword galaxy formed by Sword Venerable Big Dipper was also coiled around by the Kunlun Dragon King. Sword Venerable Big Dipper didn't say a word. Under his control, the heavenly sword galaxy suddenly surged and countless dazzling sword stars floated in it. Then, they turned into towering sword lights and attacked the Kunlun Dragon King's body. The golden dragon scales on the Kunlun Dragon King's body opened and closed continuously. Countless golden auspicious clouds emerged from within and dissipated the sword lights that were aimed at him. He suddenly opened his mouth and sucked in the heavenly sword galaxy that was connected to the golden bridge. The dragon's mouth was like a black hole, and a terrifying suction force erupted from it. The heavenly river formed by the sword stars also became unstable. A large amount of sword lights and sword chi were directly absorbed and swallowed by the Kunlun Dragon King. It was as if they couldn't cause any harm to the Kunlun Dragon King. Sword Venerable Big Dipper's divine sense shook violently in the void. He had reached the Dharma-ending realm. Even if the Kunlun Dragon King wanted to devour him like this, it would seem too arrogant. However, his rich battle experience over the years allowed him to remain calm. He knew that the Kunlun Dragon King was deliberately luring him into a trap to prevent him from dealing with the Blue Sky Dragon King and supporting Emperor Qin Stonefeather. The heavenly sword galaxy immediately continued to surround the Permitha Golden Bridge, ignoring the Kunlun Dragon King's provocation. Meanwhile, the Kunlun Dragon King's body was wrapped tightly around the Permitha Golden Bridge. While he was dealing with Sword Venerable Big Dipper, his left front claw also swiped at Zhu Yi, who was on the Permitha Golden Bridge. If this claw were to land, it would directly crush Zhu Yi's primordial spirit. Zhu Yi's expression was still calm. The Permitha Golden Bridge beneath his feet exploded with astonishing power under the support of the black and white divine light of creation. As the sky was filled with golden radiance, it forcefully blocked the Kunlun Dragon King's claw. At the same time, the majestic golden bridge continued to extend forward. In an instant, it traversed the endless void and arrived beside the Blue Sky Dragon King. Zhu Yi spread out his primordial spirit incarnation of the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram. The radiance of the golden bridge suddenly reversed, forming a huge reverse suction force. It actually pulled back the ink sea formed by the Blue Sky Dragon King's demonic power. The pressure on Emperor Qin Stonefeather, who was already surrounded by perils and on the brink of death, was finally alleviated. He activated his supernatural power, and rays of light dragons danced in the air. He fought against the weakened ink sea and tried to find an opportunity to escape. However, at this moment, the ink sea suddenly split open, and a giant yellow dragon rushed out from it. It clawed at Emperor Qin Stonefeather. It was the Dragon King Honing. Emperor Qin Stonefeather, who was busy defending against the ink sea, could only watch as the Dragon King Honing revealed his true form. At this moment, the Dragon King Honing unleashed all his power and clawed at his chest. Chapter 1186. The Yellow Dragon race was known for their vast demonic power. At the same time, the power of their physical body and chi blood was considered superior among demons of the same realm. Dragon King Honing, who was at the Astral Soul Unification realm, revealed his true form at this moment. He released all his powerful demonic power and physical strength. He opened his mouth, and starlight flashed. Many stars floated in his mouth, and the power of the stars was also added to Dragon King Honing's body. His huge body was much larger than Emperor Qin's Stonefeather. It was like the difference between a mountain and a pebble on the ground. But Dragon King Honing reached out with his claws, twisting time and space. Like two streams of light, he grabbed Emperor Qin's Stonefeather's chest. The violent dragon claws pierced through Stonefeather's essence spirit. Stonefeather, who was still defending against Jade Sky Dragon King's attack, could not care about anything else. He could only watch as Dragon King Honing's claws tore through his body. Stonefeather's human-shaped essence spirit was instantly torn apart by Dragon King Honing's claws. With a long howl, Stonefeather's essence spirit turned into streams of light and finally gathered into 5 beams of light. They were red, yellow, green, white, and black. The 5 beams of light turned into 5 light dragons that scattered in all directions, trying to escape. But although he was not killed by Dragon King Honing's attack, he was heavily injured and could no longer withstand Jade Sky Dragon King's Inxi attack. Zhu Yi's Permitha bridge withstood the Kun Dragon King's pressure and still tried to absorb the Inxi. But Stonefeather's shattered essence spirit was still instantly drowned by the Inxi. The 5 light dragons only bobbed in the ink sea for a while before completely falling silent. They were all destroyed. The last black water light dragon struggled in the ink sea. Its body kept shrinking and gradually turned back into human form. It was Emperor Qin Stonefeather. The shock and anger on his face gradually disappeared. His flat crown fell off his head, and his hair fluttered. There was only endless disappointment and worry on his face. The disappointment was because he had died before his ambitions could be fulfilled. During his reign, the Great Zhou Empire rose up strongly, and its national strength vaguely surpassed that of the Great Qin Empire. The Great Zhou's Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu were in high spirits, while Stonefeather and the Great Qin Empire were restrained by the Great Zhou, Shu Mountain, sects, and aristocratic families. It was only in the Battle of West Hill City more than a decade ago that Qin Emperor Stonefeather made one of the most important decisions in recent years. Only then did he finally have the chance to reinvigorate himself. With Lin Feng's help, the immortal Dragon City was finally completed, showing the hope of the great Qin dynasty's rise again. After that, the Battle of the Ying Ocean and the Battle of the Xian extermination continuously changed the overall situation in the Divine Land, especially between the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Zhou dynasty. After the east wind blew for many years, the west wind finally suppressed the east wind again. The Great Zhou dynasty's rising momentum was severely affected and even showed signs of decline, while the Great Qin dynasty's strength continued to increase. However, there were still 2 mountains towering above the Great Qin dynasty, Taishu Temple and Xianmen Tianzong. No emperor was willing to be below others. It was not just Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, but Qin Emperor Stonefeather was the same. The entire Great Qin dynasty was constantly searching for any opportunity that could allow them to advance further, an opportunity that could allow them to continue rising. However, opportunity was always accompanied by risk. Qin Emperor Stonefeather knew this long ago, but when this moment really came, he was still filled with regret. What worried him even more was the fate that the Great Qin dynasty would face next. The fate of the Golden Rock Sage and his subordinates was like a lesson that was still vivid in his mind. Stonefeather's gaze finally looked towards the immortal Dragon City. There, the creation treasure that the Great Qin dynasty had placed high hopes on seemed to have become an ordinary section of the Great Wall. Apart from its astonishing length, there was nothing special about it. The creation treasure's origin spirit sank into silence, not responding to Stonefeather's thoughts. The ritual was still going on. After losing Stonefeather's control, Stonefeather could no longer control or predict whether the ritual would change or what direction everything would take. The girl in the sacrificial ritual was also in a state of unconsciousness. Since he had already made a decision, Qin Emperor Stonefeather would not regret it or blame others. He only had deep regret in his heart. One wrong step led to many wrong steps. The sad thing was that there was no chance to turn back and start again. Stonefeather's consciousness gradually dissipated, and the immortal Dragon City also gradually disappeared from his vision. An emperor of a human faction had fallen just like that. So far in the war between the two worlds, the first leader-level expert of the human cultivation world had fallen. The ruler of the Great Qin dynasty, Qin Emperor Stonefeather. In the distant infinite wilderness land, the expression of the Fang Dragon King, who was trying to forcefully refine Yu Hongyan with dragon fire, suddenly changed. He seemed to have received a voice transmission from someone else. Then, he laughed wildly. That human who blasphemed the remains of the ancestral dragon is seeking his own destruction. And that so-called immortal Dragon City will also be destroyed. Good. 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 The greatest humiliation of my race since the immemorial era will finally be washed away. Fang Dragon King's expression was extremely joyful. He looked down at Yu Hongyan trapped in the sea of fire and roared. He continued to spit out dragon fire. Large amounts of fire surrounded Yu Hongyan, wanting to refine her to death. The demonic aura that Ho Ning Dragon King had left behind was vast and endless to both Fang Dragon King and Yu Hongyan. Now that it was ignited by Fang Dragon King's dragon fire, it instantly turned into a fiery hell. But Yu Hongyan once again shocked Fang Dragon King. Through the previous exchange, Fang Dragon King felt that Yu Hongyan was an opponent that could only win with ease. This was not a derogatory term, because Yu Hongyan's advantage was created by herself, and her fighting style was constantly expanding the advantage of Yu Hongyan's advantage, like a rolling snowball that could not be stopped. The more she fought, the smoother she became, and the faster her opponent collapsed. To turn the tables on Yu Hongyan was an extremely difficult task for an opponent of the same level as her. As long as Yu Hongyan had the advantage would only become more and more obvious, and it would be hard to reverse. But on the other hand, if Yu Hongyan was in a disadvantageous position, and was suppressed by the opponent, then she would only attack. She did not specialize in defense, and would also lose quickly. However, her tough style often made her opponents wary. When they killed Yu Hongyan, it was easy for Yu Hongyan to counterattack, and they would pay a huge price. Fang Dragon King had been guarding against this. But now, he saw that Yu Hongyan had actually pulled back her spear, condensing it in front of her, and waved it slowly. It looked slow, but was actually extremely fast. She blocked the dragon fire outside. Although a large amount of dragon fire still broke through and injured Yu Hongyan, most of it was blocked by her. A dark cloud seemed to form around Yu Hongyan. The dark cloud contained large amounts of water vapor, but it did not explode. It gave off a heavy and oppressive feeling. But before it could explode, it contained a terrifying explosive power, as though it would explode at any moment. Yu Hongyan, who usually only knew how to attack, was actually defending at this moment. And her defense was impenetrable. With her current cultivation level, she had done it to the extreme. Yu Hongyan's Heaven Law 4 Elephant Holy Spear, Impenetrable Cloud Holy Spear. In one move, she had both offense and defense. She attacked but did not attack. She hid but did not unleash it. Yet, she was able to defend at the same time. It was as though a thunderstorm was hidden in the clouds. This was a martial technique that was different from Yu Hongyan's past battle style, and it also seemed to go against the martial will that she had been practicing all this while. However, right now, Yu Hongyan did not feel any disharmony, nor did she feel dejected from being forced to defend. Instead, it was as if there was a hidden dragon in the abyss, and there was an even greater power accumulating. Yu Hongyan's expression was determined. Fang Dragon King's dragon fire had been boosted by Ho Ning Dragon King's demonic power. It had far exceeded the limits of his previous abilities. Although Yu Hongyan's impenetrable cloud holy spear had the power of Taiyin true water, a large amount of dragon fire still broke through and landed on Yu Hongyan. The 7 kills star armor shone with purple light, blocking most of the dragon fire for Yu Hongyan. But there was still a lot of dragon fire that attacked her. In Yu Hongyan's eyes, there was a faint flicker of fire. Her control over her own power had reached an extremely fine level. All the acupoints on her body were opening and closing. Each acupoint moved at a different speed and frequency, as though each acupoint had its own thoughts. The invading dragon fire was dispelled by the pulsing acupoints on Yu Hongyan's body. After absorbing the dragon fire and refining it, they would spit it out again. This prevented the dragon fire from causing too much damage to her body. But even so, the pain from the dragon fire was not something an ordinary person could endure. Endless pain. Endless torture. All the blood and qi in her body seemed to be boiling. All 48,000 pores on her body were twitching in pain. It was as though they were wailing and screaming at the same time. Yu Hongyan did not make a sound. Her gaze was as determined as ever. But the roiling dragon fire was increasing. The fire that broke through the immortal cloud spear was also growing. Everything seemed to be sliding into an unsalvageable abyss. Fang's Dragon King stared at Yu Hongyan and said coldly, that Qin person is seeking his own death. He and his immortal dragon city are about to be destroyed. Your fellow sect members will not be able to save you. Woman, you are dead today. Even if your other sect members come here, I will kill you before they arrive. You will not be able to wait for them to save you. Fang's Dragon King laughed coldly. Do you have a lover? If you do, then think of him before you die. You are fated to never see him again. Hate him for letting you die here alone. Hearing this, Yu Hongyan's expression did not change. She looked coldly at Fang's Dragon King, who made the rule that women must wait for others to save them. Her gaze grew brighter and brighter, to the point that Fang's Dragon King felt it was blinding. In the sky, lightning bolts struck down. However, they did not attack Fang's Dragon King, but landed on Yu Hongyan. Other than the dragon fire, a sea of lightning essence chi also poured into Yu Hongyan's meridians. Countless lightning sparks swam around her body like thousands of lightning snakes. Yu Hongyan opened her mouth and spat out a stream of light. Within the light, there was a large amount of golden blood mist. This blood mist spread out and covered Yu Hongyan's body. It fused with the dragon fire and lightning, as if her entire body was coated with a layer of golden light. The red-haired girl's blood chi power became even stronger. Chapter 1187. Yu Hongyan's entire body was covered in a layer of golden radiance. Within the golden radiance, the acupoints of different sizes on Yu Hongyan's body were flashing with a large number of light spots. It was as though they had a life of their own and were breathing. Every acupoint was fluctuating as though there was an extremely powerful creature residing in each acupoint. These light spots were all crimson in color, like flames. Within the fiery red light, there were bluish-purple electric arcs that were flickering and jumping. At this moment, a powerful force was surging within this seemingly petite body. What shocked and angered Fang's Dragon King was that the golden blood mist that Yu Hongyan had just refined was the pure primordial sky dragon's true blood. That wasn't the flesh and blood of any other dragon. It was the flesh and blood of the Kun Dragon King that was fighting with Zhu Yi, Sword Venerable Tiangang, and the rest. It originated from the dragon tail that Lin Feng had destroyed. A portion of the true blood of the heavenly dragon was bestowed by Lin Feng to his disciples. As a cultivator that specialized in martial arts, Yu Hongyan naturally received a portion. However, the power contained in the Kun Dragon King's flesh and blood was too powerful. Even though the dragon tail had been completely destroyed, the true blood was not something that a Yuanian cultivator could withstand. However, Yu Hongyan had already made the necessary arrangements under Lin Feng's guidance. Although she did not expect the situation to turn out this way, it did not affect her decision. There were risks, but Yu Hongyan was not someone who was afraid of risks. Under the tempering of the lightning and fire, the pure golden primordial sky dragon's true blood covered Yu Hongyan's body like a layer of light film. Then, it was gradually absorbed by the acupoints of her body. In Yu Hongyan's eyes, there was a surge of purple light. The void around her started to crack, and several black holes appeared at the same time, engulfing everything around her. At this moment, Yu Hongyan's Dao Scripture Foundation Dao technique was being circulated to the extreme by Yu Hongyan. Golden light glittered on her body, and even purple stripes began to appear, gradually taking the form of flickering dragon scales. As the dragon scales opened and closed, a large amount of thunder fire surged out and then absorbed the new dragon fire and heavenly thunder, as if forming a stable cycle. The momentum of Yu Hongyan's spear was getting slower and slower, but the aura it exuded was getting stronger and stronger. It was as though in this extremely dangerous situation, he was squeezing out all the potential in his body. It was like a peerless divine weapon that had been tempered once again, becoming sharper. A pill suddenly appeared, as if it was formed from a ball of ceaselessly roiling clouds. It was the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill. Yu Hongyan opened her mouth and swallowed the cloud-shaped immortal pill. Yu Hongyan raised his head to the sky and let out a long, clear roar. At this moment, Yu Hongyan's heaven and earth Dharma idol, which had completely merged with his physical body, finally appeared. The heaven and earth Dharma idol stood tall, its 8 arms stirring up wind, thunder, water, volcanoes, and swamps. Its body was covered in heavy armor, which was like dragon scales. As the scales opened and closed, large amounts of thunder fire surrounded this huge heaven and earth Dharma idol. The Dharma form of heaven and earth was born with 4 heads and 4 faces, each with a different expression. The first one was cold and murderous like a strong wind, the second one was gloomy and oppressive like rain clouds, the third one was angry like a thunderbolt, and the last one was unpredictable like a lightning bolt. Above the heaven and earth Dharma idol's head, there seemed to be wind, rain, thunder, lightning, fog, snow, and many other natural phenomena appearing at the same time. Above the natural phenomena, there was an illusory realm, which showed the destruction of all things, the collapse of the void, and the scene of everything returning to nothingness. Then, the scene of a cauldron forming a new world was created. Yu Hongyan directly let go of the army destroyer monarch halberd. The green and black halberd suddenly enlarged in the void and was grabbed by the huge heaven and earth Dharma idol. Then, it fiercely counterattacked the Fang Dragon King's violent attacks. Spear after spear, it met attack with attack, shattering the void and clashing with the dragon fire in front of it. It faced the difficulties head-on, pressing forward with an indomitable will. A young girl appeared above Yu Hongyan's head. She looked almost exactly the same as herself, about 15 or 16 years old. It was her Yuanying. As the heaven and earth Dharma idol continued to display its martial Tao, Yu Hongyan's essence, Qi, and spirit also continued to rise to new heights. Her body also continued to absorb the power of the thunder fire and dragon blood, becoming stronger and stronger. At this moment, both the tangible and intangible spirit were continuously strengthening. The obstacles that she couldn't clear in the past were now easily solved. It was as if there was a brand new world in front of her, presenting itself to Yu Hongyan. This caused her heart and spirit to be unprecedentedly clear. To her, this was a brand new experience. It was as if she had been reborn and stood at a brand new height. The faintly discernible door in her mind started to become clear at this moment. As the heaven and earth Dharma idol charged forward, Yu Hongyan took one step at a time. At this moment, the opponent she wanted to defeat was no longer the toothless Dragon King in front of her, but her past self. To surpass herself and step into a brand new world. The toothless Dragon King's gaze was cold as he stared at Yu Hongyan. The majestic dragon fire continued to attack, but most of it was blocked by the golden light membrane. The flames that could pass through the light membrane were actually helping Yu Hongyan increase her strength. How could he not see that Yu Hongyan was using this opportunity to break through the barrier between heaven and man, and reach the primordial soul stage? Thinking that he had become Yu Hongyan's whetstone, the toothless Dragon King's anger and humiliation rose even further. He could not hold it in any longer, and his entire body leapt into the sea of fire. He turned into a red light dragon and attacked Yu Hongyan with all his might. Yu Hongyan's heaven and earth Dharma idol's 4 faces let out a silent cry, but it stirred up the surroundings. The wind blew, the clouds scud, and the thunder rumbled. Her eyes were closed, and her body seemed to be unaware of anything. Her hands moved like she was holding a spear, and then she stabbed at the toothless Dragon King. The heaven and earth Dharma idol that was holding the army breaching halberd did the same. Wild power surged, and the golden light membrane and the sky full of thunder and fire were all added to the spear. Yu Hongyan struck out with the strongest attack of her life, and clashed with the toothless Dragon King. After this attack, the toothless Dragon King's body paused for a moment, while Yu Hongyan's willpower reached its peak, and he pushed open the primordial soul door. When she was young, she saw the flames of war raging in the sky, and the blood of her family and friends splattering everywhere in front of her. The beautiful and peaceful Mist Mountain in her memory, which was covered in snow all year round, no longer existed in the blood and fire. From then on, she embarked on a life of exile. There were many close calls, and she suffered from hunger and cold. Her friends were sacrificed one by one, and her numbers were reduced. She grew up in such an environment, and fought continuously to protect her people. In the end, she lost everything because of the person she once trusted the most. It was only when she met her master, Lin Feng, at Eternal Spring Mountain that everything seemed to change. At the peak of Jade Capital Mountain, under the mysterious sky treasure tree, the mysterious sky treasure tree leaf that was stuck between her brows, and helped her build a grade 1 spirit platform, brought her to a whole new world. From then on, she was unwavering. Yu Hongyan's body suddenly opened her eyes, and purple light surged in her eyes. Yuanying turned into a stream of light, and merged with her heaven and earth Dharma form. The huge heaven and earth Dharma form completely merged with Yu Hongyan, and they rushed into the open door together. After passing through the door, Yu Hongyan's heaven and earth Dharma form was baptized by the laws of heaven and earth. It disintegrated into talisman seeds, and each seed was compatible with heaven and earth, and shone with dazzling light. In the next moment, these talisman seeds turned into a huge Tai Chi diagram in the void. It was half black and half white, and the two levels blended together. Slowly, it rotated. Yu Hongyan's martial will manifested in the sky above the Taiji diagram. The illusions became clearer and clearer. Life and death continued in the void. Everything was changing and changing, showing the wonders of heaven and earth. At the same time, the illusions revealed an extremely ferocious, destructive, and powerful energy. A clear song reverberated around the vast land of infinite wilderness. Mist Mountain is filled with fire and snow, and I listen to the mantra under the mysterious sky tree. The heavenly lightning and earthly fire will refine my body, and I will take the lead. The fourth disciple of the master of the celestial sect, perfected Lord Black Mist Yu Hongyan, had reached the essence soul realm today. The army destroyer halberd had already merged into the huge Tai Chi diagram. Apart from that, there was also a blood-red ball that looked like a blood-red gem, or a ferocious eyeball. It also fell into the Tai Chi diagram formed by Yu Hongyan's essence soul. Not only that, even the 7-kill star armor on her body suddenly left and merged into the Tai Chi diagram. The power of the Tai Chi diagram spread out, and Fang's Dragon King, who was at the primordial true spirit state, even felt a faint sense of fear. How can he break through so easily and reach the essence soul state so quickly? The difficulty for humans to reach the essence soul state is similar to the difficulty for us to reach the indestructible demon soul state. How can he do it so easily? He originally thought that Yu Hongyan did not know what was good for him. He actually dared to reach the essence soul state in front of him. If it was any other human cultivator, even if they could successfully form a essence soul, when facing a powerful enemy like Fang's Dragon King, it would be the same as putting their lives in the hands of Fang's Dragon King. They would be killed during the breakthrough. Sometimes, the Fang Dragon King wouldn't even bother to attack Yu Hongyan when he was trying to break through. However, he knew that Yu Hongyan was only at the late stage of the Yuanying realm. Yu Hongyan was already his opponent, so he wouldn't underestimate him. But after the first attack, when Yu Hongyan started to break through and officially reopen the gate of Essence Soul, the golden membrane suddenly solidified. It flashed with lightning and fire, and blocked Fang's Dragon King outside. If Fang's Dragon King had enough time, he would eventually be able to break through. However, the speed at which Yu Hongyan broke through was far beyond his expectations. When he finally broke through the golden membrane, Yu Hongyan had already formed his own Yuan Shen. Fang's Dragon King gritted his teeth. His pride and anger did not allow him to retreat. Instead, it stimulated him even more. He thought viciously, no matter what the result of today's battle is, even if you form a Yuan Shen, I will destroy your physical body. You are a martial cultivator. If your physical body is destroyed, no matter how strong your Yuan Shen is, your power will be greatly reduced. Whether you can find a satisfactory physical body is still unknown. With that thought, Fang's Dragon King roared and turned into a ray of red light. He wrapped around the Tai Chi diagram and Yu Hongyan's own physical body. Then, he suddenly tightened. He wanted to crush Yu Hongyan's physical body before Yu Hongyan's Yuan Shen merged with his physical body. Chapter 1188. When the red light from the Toothless Dragon King wrapped around Yu Hongyan's body, the Tai Chi diagram formed by Yu Hongyan's Yuan Shen suddenly turned into a cloud pillar and fell on top of her head. Yu Hongyan's body shook, as if she had woken up from unconsciousness. She took in a deep breath. As she inhaled, the sky dragon blood and the power of lightning and fire that floated around her body were absorbed into her meridians. The power of the dragon blood was so strong that even with Yu Hongyan's Yuan Shen, she could only absorb a portion. The rest was stored for future cultivation. But even so, her body's power had already reached an unbelievable level. Her Yuan Shen and her body were completely merged. Her meridians were like stars in the universe. At this time, Teeth Dragon King's power had shrunk to its limit. But he could clearly feel that as he shrunk, Yu Hongyan's body seemed to have shrunk as well. This was not a transformation of a god art, but a powerful physical power that could be released and retracted at will. It was a combination of strength and softness. Even in a state of unconsciousness, it could still adjust itself. When Yu Hongyan's primordial spirit and her physical body completely fused, the purple light in her eyes faded away, and she regained her clarity. Her physical body immediately stopped shrinking, and she pushed outwards with all her might. Teeth Dragon King instantly felt that the thing wrapped around his body was a pillar that could support the heavens. Even if it was a mountain, it would shatter after being wrapped around by Teeth Dragon King's body. But now that he was wrapped around Yu Hongyan, she did not move at all. Teeth Dragon King's heart went cold. Yu Hongyan was wearing a purple robe. After the 7-kill star armor disappeared, she did not put it back on. She was able to endure Teeth Dragon King's strangulation with just the toughness of her body. This defense is even stronger than a primordial true spirit realm smelting armor black dragon. Fang's Dragon King suddenly realized that not only was he unable to kill Yu Hongyan, but Yu Hongyan's power was getting stronger and stronger, and was slowly pushing the red light away. The Fang Dragon King started to feel a tearing pain in his body. It was as if his body was about to break under that immense power. Yu Hongyan's expression was calm, but her killing intent was overflowing. She began to exert strength in her arms, and the red light that bound her began to expand. The Fang's Dragon King roared angrily and suddenly let go of Yu Hongyan. It turned into a fiery light and flew away, trying to increase the distance between it and Yu Hongyan. Yu Hongyan stepped into the air and chased after the Fang's Dragon King. But the Fang Dragon King, who was acting like he was escaping, suddenly turned around and turned around. He opened his mouth, revealing 2 extremely dazzling dragon fangs. Those dragon fangs were completely formed from flames, and gradually turned into light. Next, the 2 glowing dragon fangs shot out pillars of light. The sea of dragon fire in the surrounding void was also attracted by the 2 light pillars. All the dragon fire began to merge into the 2 light pillars, turning into 2 huge pillars of fire that could split the heavens and the earth. They shot towards Yu Hongyan, who was chasing him. This was originally a killing move that the Fang's Dragon King had planned to use to turn the tables. But as he turned around, his heart jumped. It was as if a heavy hammer was pounding on his heart, causing his entire body to tremble. He felt like a disaster was about to befall him. He saw Yu Hongyan, who was chasing him in the air, fuse his blood essence and martial intent together, pushing it to the extreme. His meridians trembled like a tsunami. A majestic, vigorous, and peerlessly overbearing aura gushed out, causing the world around them to change color for a moment. Yu Hongyan stepped into the air. With every step, his body would bend or straighten, open or close. It looked comical at first glance, as his speed was as slow as an old bull. But as Yu Hongyan stepped forward, her speed became faster and faster. Her body flickered, causing the Fang's Dragon King, who was in the primitive true spirit realm, to be unable to see her movements. Increasing speed was one thing, but the strength was also increasing. At the beginning, when Yu Hongyan's feet landed, his movements seemed fierce, but they were actually very soft and powerless. When he landed on the ground, not even a speck of dust would fly up. But in the end, with every step Yu Hongyan took, the air would shatter. When his feet landed, it was as if a black hole would appear. The cracks in space exploded, as if a giant demon god was running, stomping on the ground. His movements became heavier and heavier, as if the sky was collapsing like an earthquake. Yu Hongyan's expression wasn't as cold and murderous as before. Instead, in her calmness, there was a kind of sincere faith and emotion. Moreover, her gaze contained the domineering confidence of having the entire world in her grasp, of having the power to decide life and death, and it was all up to her. Dragon Snake Rising. After Yu Hongyan achieved Yuan Shen, she created a new killing move, Dragon Snake Rising. In the past, when Yu Hongyan was cultivating the essence of the Astro Sovereign's martial arts, his master Lin Feng saw it and smiled. He said, "When the heavens want to kill, the stars will be moved. When the earth wants to kill, the dragon snake will rise. When humans want to kill, the world will turn upside down." Lin Feng seemed to be speaking casually, but he was actually giving pointers to his own disciple. At that time, Yu Hongyan had already vaguely felt something in his heart. Now that he had proven his primordial soul and mastered his cultivation, he finally had substantial gains. Dragon Snake Rising meant that the earth was shaking and all living beings were restless. It was a sign of a great disaster. And now that Yu Hongyan had taken a few steps, the Fang Dragon King immediately felt like he was in big trouble. It was like the end of the world, and he was on the brink of destruction. The army destroyer Imperial Halberd reappeared in Yu Hongyan's hand. He pushed it forward with the momentum of the Dragon Snake Rising, and a ferocious spear swept across the void, directly shattering the void and sweeping away the two fiery lights from the Fang's Dragon King. The fire pillars exploded, but before they could turn into endless fire, they were all destroyed in the cracks of the space. Yu Hongyan didn't stop charging forward. He continued to charge forward. In just a few steps, he had already arrived in front of Teeth Dragon King. Teeth Dragon King had lost all hope. However, he roared and still charged at Yu Hongyan. He wanted to fight to the death. Yu Hongyan's body moved to the side, and he had already dodged the Fang Dragon King. He held his spear in one hand, and his other hand struck out at the Fang Dragon King. There was a series of muffled sounds in the air. The space collapsed, squeezing a fiery red dragon right in the middle. Yu Hongyan then stabbed out with his spear. The Fang Dragon King roared as the true spirit god mark on his forehead flashed continuously. He used all his strength to move his body forward, but Yu Hongyan's spear still managed to pierce through his dragon tail, pinning him in place. He wanted to cut off his tail in order to survive, but Yu Hongyan was faster than him. He held the spear in one hand and grabbed the wound on the Fang Dragon King's tail with the other. "You!" The Fang Dragon King screamed in pain. Yu Hongyan's hand dug into his flesh and grabbed onto a thick dragon tendon. Then, he tore it apart forcefully. That dragon tendon was huge, and its toughness was beyond imagination. Even the army breaker King Halberd might not be able to break it in one strike. But Yu Hongyan's hand was grabbing the thick dragon tendon in his hand. Then, he began to violently twist it. Slowly, the red-haired girl said, "You know, although Senior Apprentice Sister Lee is tough, she is actually soft on the inside. She is kind and warm-hearted. When I was cultivating during the Golden Elixir period, I needed several materials. I couldn't find them in the Kunlun Mountains, so I didn't ask Senior Apprentice Sister Lee for help. But after she accidentally heard the news, she found them in a dimensional realm owned by Purple Cloud Path and sent them to me. When she sent them to me, I couldn't even react." Teeth Dragon King didn't have time to answer her question. His huge dragon body instantly curled up like a shrimp in pain. All the scales on his body opened up, and every inch of his skin was twitching violently. Under the pain of death, Teeth Dragon King struggled with all his might. He turned around and bit at Yu Hongyan. Yu Hongyan stepped on the Fang Dragon King's tail. The air seemed to freeze, pinning the Fang Dragon King's tail firmly in the empty air. There was no material support, but the Fang Dragon King's tail could not move. The scene was extremely strange. Stepping on Teeth Dragon King's dragon aura, Yu Hongyan pulled out the army breaker King Halberd. Then, with a lightning-fast strike, he knocked Teeth Dragon King's huge head open. At the same time, her seemingly slender white hands continued to exert force. The tough dragon tendon immediately tightened and trembled. Yu Hongyan's gaze was cold, but his tone was gentle and calm. "Senior brother Gu doesn't talk much. He always smiles warmly, and likes to watch Senior Sister Lee from the side silently. But I know that his personality is the complete opposite of Senior Sister Lee's. He looks gentle on the outside, but tough on the inside. He has his own ideas, and is brave and fearless. I can see that he loves Senior Sister Lee so much that he won't change his mind even in death. Teeth Dragon King felt like all the energy in his body was being sucked out. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't fight against Yu Hongyan's powerful strength. With a fierce pull, the dragon tendon was forcefully pulled out from Teeth Dragon King's body. The dragon's body was torn apart. Yu Hongyan kept the dragon tendon, and even let go of the army breaker King halberd temporarily. He grabbed the dragon's scales with both hands, and with another forceful pull, the dragon's scales and skin were also forcefully removed from the flesh. Teeth Dragon King kept roaring, but to no avail. He could clearly feel that his dragon body was starting to weaken. The true spirit god tattoo on his forehead had merged with his demon soul. He was about to leave his dragon body and abandon his body. Teeth Dragon King's heart was bleeding, but he had no other choice. But Yu Hongyan's body immediately surged with a misty red haze. It was extremely ferocious. It was the infinite demonic aura. The infinite demonic aura instantly covered Teeth Dragon King's dragon body, and even swept through the surrounding area. This corner of Tianhuang continent was covered in a red haze. Teeth Dragon King suddenly realized that his demon soul was being sucked in by Yu Hongyan, and he couldn't escape. Senior Sister Lee once said that her greatest fear in this life was that her talent was weaker than Senior Brother Gu's. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to form an essence soul, and when her lifespan reached the end of 3,600 years, she might not be able to accompany Senior Brother Gu for the rest of his life. Yu Hongyan's eyes were filled with sorrow. At that time, I swore in my heart that I would ask Master for a 33 Heavens Fortune immortal pill for her, even if I had to give her my own pill. We can't live together, but we can die together. Senior Sister Lee and Senior Brother Gu might be comforted, but if they could live, who would be willing to die? Before Xiaolan left, she told me that you were the one who killed Senior Sister Lee and Senior Brother Gu. I will kill you now to comfort their souls in heaven. The red-haired girl's expression turned murderous. She held up the army breaker King halberd again and stabbed forward. Teeth Dragon King's desperate roar echoed in the sky. The powerful dragon soul was shattered by Yu Hongyan's spear. Chapter 1189. In the endless void outside of the desolate infinite land, the Kunlun Dragon King and the other dragon race experts felt their hearts skip a beat, and they felt agitated. The Fangs Dragon King's true spirit divine tattoo seemed to be disappearing from their divine senses. After Flame Dragon King Lu Yen, another Flame Dragon Master had fallen. The Tranquil Dragon King was even more dumbfounded. With the help of my demonic power, will Fangs still be killed by that woman? The Kunlun Dragon King was even more agitated. He felt a boundless fire burning in his heart, and he seemed to feel his blood essence surging in the distance. This made him recall the scene when his dragon claws and dragon tail were severed by Lin Feng. The huge primordial heavenly dragon roared into the sky and pounced at Zhu Yi. The body of the dragon coiled around the Permetha bridge tightened, and the golden light and sky sword galaxy kept shaking. On the other side, the Jade Sky Dragon King roared and spat out endless black light that swept towards the Immortal Dragon City. The Immortal Dragon City had fallen into silence, but its foundation was strong. Even under the attack of the Jade Sky Dragon King's Jade Dragon Flames, it was still standing for a while as if it was indestructible. However, the Jade Dragon Flames were best at breaking techniques. Under the powerful intent realm, even a dimensional realm would be melted and destroyed. The Immortal Dragon City, which was completely silent, was engulfed by the black light and started to float up and down. The surface of the sturdy city walls started to become mottled. The huge Great Wall suddenly glowed strangely, and the shape of a dragon vaguely appeared. It kept changing between the Great Wall and the huge heavenly dragon. Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper attacked and defended, and they cooperated well to block the Kun Dragon King's attack. Since Emperor Qin Stonefeather was dead, Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper could use their battle strategies more freely. They were no longer in a hurry, and they could fight the Kun Dragon King with more ease. As time passed, the cooperation between the two became better. The Kunlun Dragon King's Yuan Qi was injured when the Dragon Realm's defense was forcefully breached. As a result, his furious and ferocious attack was forcefully pushed back by Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Tiangang. Although Lin Feng's creation Divine Light Crystal was being consumed rapidly, it was still supporting Zhu Yi's Permitha Bridge. The originally illusory ninth halo on the Golden Bridge had already disappeared, but there were still 8 colorful halos shining brightly. Amidst the magnificent golden light, there seemed to be 8 lofty gods appearing under the Golden Bridge at the same time. They reached out their hands together and lifted the Permitha Golden Bridge up. The golden rainbow that was enveloped by the divine light of black and white streaked across the sky at this moment. Celestial Dipper Sword Venerable also used his magic power at the same time. The celestial river that was formed by the sword light was dazzling, and tens of thousands of rays of light spread out together. The Kunlun Dragon King, who was wrapped around the Permitha Golden Bridge, was finally shaken off forcefully. Without waiting for the Kun Dragon King to make his next move, the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram formed by Zhu Yi's primordial spirit had already unfolded. After forcing the Kun Dragon King back, it immediately merged with the Permitha Bridge and transformed into a towering giant that looked like a deity that had descended from the heavens. 8 colorful light circles appeared on the top of the giant's head, and black and white divine light shone on the edge of the golden light, shaking the heavens. He stretched out his hand and wrote the word "E" in the void, gathering the chi of heaven and earth to one point. Then, he made 3 seals in a row. His power merged and turned into a fist force that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. The fist force came crashing down on the Kun Dragon King's head. With the help of the black and white divine light, the fist force was so powerful that even the Kun Dragon King felt a chill down his spine. The giant heavenly dragon roared and revealed his true form. As the scales on his body opened and closed, a large amount of golden light shot out and condensed into a thick dragon cloud. His claw brazenly grabbed out and collided with the giant's fist seal. In the dark void, other than black and white, there was only the dazzling golden light that lit up the surrounding void. The void constantly shook and twisted. There were even dimensional realms that were close to the battlefield that were shaken to the point where their outlines began to appear. Beneath the illumination of the golden light, they constantly shook like giant bubbles. Cracks even appeared on the surface of these bubbles, as if they would burst apart at any moment. The black and white divine light was being consumed. The crystallization of Lin Feng's divine light of creation was going to run out sooner or later. However, the Kun Dragon King's eyes were filled with shock and anger. He looked at Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper. Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper turned into a shooting star and flew far away. His target was the Blue Sky Dragon King. Although Emperor Qin's Stonefeather was dead, the original plan was still the one that had the highest chance of winning. Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper and Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper didn't continue attacking while Zhu Yi stalled the Kun Dragon King. The Blue Sky Dragon King was shocked. His judgment of the situation was very accurate and he knew what Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper was planning to do. If he was hit by Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper's Dharma-ending catastrophe, he would either die immediately or become extremely weak. Not only would he not be able to help the Kun Dragon King, but he would also become the Kun Dragon King's burden. The Blue Sky Dragon King was a decisive person. He didn't care about destroying the immortal Dragon City anymore. Instead, he condensed a black light to wrap around the immortal Dragon City. Then, a strange pattern appeared on his forehead. The pattern instantly covered his whole body and gave off a dazzling light. The light was boundless and flashed with black light. However, the color of the seawater was pure gold. It was the Mystic Sea. However, the Mystic Sea was in a very violent state. The passage that the Blue Sky Dragon King created was very unstable. It seemed like it could collapse at any time. Because the Blue Sky Dragon King created this passage, the flow of the spirit chi in the Mystic Sea became more chaotic and unstable. The Blue Sky Dragon King wanted to use the power of the Mystic Sea to guide him back to the Mystic Sea. However, due to the special circumstances, the construction of the passage was slower than usual. The Big Dipper Sword Venerable was very decisive. He didn't have any intention of exchanging a few blows with the Blue Sky Dragon King. He pointed his left index finger and 2 fingers at the Blue Sky Dragon King like a sword. A dark black gas turned into a straight black line and shot toward the Blue Sky Dragon King. Deva's 5 declines, Dharma ending calamity. Wherever the black gas passed, the entire world seemed to be weakening. It was like the end of the world was coming. It was irreversible. The Blue Sky Dragon King couldn't dodge. He could only take the Dharma ending calamity head-on. His jade-like body lost its luster. It was as if he was covered in dirt. He emitted an unbearable stench that was even more disgusting than the Blood River True Water. The dragon race, which had always been proud and had the aura of an emperor, seemed to be the ruler of the world. At this moment, stains appeared on their bodies, and a large number of dragon scales fell off. The vast demonic energy fluctuation and the majestic and terrifying dragon might suddenly disappeared. It was as if they had fallen from the clouds high up in the sky into a muddy swamp. The nobles instantly turned into unkempt beggars in ragged clothes. The Blue Sky Dragon King let out a low roar. Be it his demonic power, his physical strength, or his demonic soul, all of them fell to the lowest point. The Big Dipper Sword Venerable looked at this scene expressionlessly. It's a pity that he survived the degeneration calamity. The Blue Sky Dragon King was powerful. Although he didn't have enough confidence, he didn't take the last step to the Dharma ending realm like Huangshan Dragon King. He had accumulated a lot of power. Now that he was forced to go through the degeneration calamity because of the Big Dipper Sword Venerable, he didn't die under the degeneration calamity. He survived it successfully. Although he looked miserable now, as long as he recovered from this period of weakness, he would enter the Dharma ending realm and become a primordial heavenly dragon. However, all of that had to wait until he passed this stage. Although the Big Dipper Sword Venerable had also endured a Dharma ending calamity, it was far from his limit. Although his power was also damaged, he could kill the Blue Sky Dragon King with a casual strike. The power of the Mystic Sea kept fluctuating, and the strange passageway gradually formed to bring the Blue Sky Dragon King back. However, the black light that wrapped around the immortal dragon city was collapsing. The huge immortal dragon city appeared again, but it couldn't follow the Blue Sky Dragon King into the Mystic Sea. Instead, it kept floating in the broken void. The Big Dipper Sword Venerable couldn't care less about the immortal dragon city anymore. He quickly turned into a Milky Way and slashed at the Blue Sky Dragon King, trying to seize the last opportunity. However, the Kun Dragon King roared again. He took a punch from Zhu Yi and turned into a stream of light. He instantly broke through the void and chased after the Big Dipper Sword Venerable. He clawed at the Kun Dragon King. The Big Dipper Sword Venerable was helpless. The Milky Way formed by the sword light flipped in the void and slashed at the Kun Dragon King's claw. The Kun Dragon King's claw emitted a dazzling light. The Big Dipper Sword Venerable let out a muffled groan, and the heavenly sword Milky Way shattered. His body was revealed. His right hand that was holding the Big Dipper Sword Venerable was trembling non-stop. There was a white stream of light in the void. It was the Big Dipper Sword Venerable's damaged Great Tao Essence. Zhu Yi, on the other hand, was following closely behind the Kunlun Dragon King. The Kunlun Dragon King let out a long roar, and his seemingly shortened dragon tail lashed out forcefully in the universe, shattering countless stars and colliding head-on with Zhu Yi. The black and white light on the golden giant that was formed by the Permitha Golden Bridge was gradually used up. Even the 8th colorful halo above its head was fading away. The golden giant turned around and turned back into the heaven-connecting golden bridge. The Wenhua Tai Chi diagram fell from the sky and turned back into the human form of the purple-robed scholar. Zhu Yi stood on the golden bridge and stared at the Kun Dragon King in front of him. He looked at the black sea that seemed to be connected to the void, the Blue Sky Dragon King who had escaped into it, and the immortal dragon city that was floating in the shattered space as if it was about to sink into the boundless sea of space. The immortal dragon city's dragon soul sacrificial ritual went out of control unexpectedly. The Kun Dragon King's unfathomable strength, the mysterious power of the Black Sea, the unstable state of the immortal dragon city, the unknown changes and the chaotic situation of the immortal dragon city in the void. Everything seemed to be shrouded in a dense fog, making it hard for one to see clearly and grasp the situation. However, Zhu Yi's eyes were getting brighter and brighter at this moment. His mind was getting clearer and clearer. Chapter 1190. Ever since cultivating the third chapter of the scripture of the heavenly virtue that Lin Feng taught them, the true scripture of yin and yang returned to origin, whether it is Wang Lin or Zhu Yi and the others, they have all integrated their own understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth during their cultivation, evolving their own Tao of yin and yang. Within the heavenly virtue scripture, it was constantly derived and improved, climbing to new heights. Wang Lin's yin and yang Tao was the unification of the two great ways of destiny and defying destiny, which were polar opposites but closely related. After identifying this path and having the initial understanding, Wang Lin became the first among Lin Feng's disciples to step onto this path. As he continued on this path, the path of refining the spirit and returning to the void had already appeared in front of Wang Lin. At this moment, in the face of many pressing situations and powerful enemies, Zhu Yi also began to gradually and thoroughly understand his yin and yang Tao. The path of a boundless future was already gradually becoming clear. In the karma discussion with Buddhism in the past, Wang Lin had benefited the most, and Zhu Yi had also gained a lot. At this moment, it was no longer difficult for him to completely understand the last bit of truth that he had not fully understood in the past. Zhu Yi stood on the golden Paramitha bridge and transformed into a human form for only a moment. Then, he once again manifested his primordial spirit incarnation, turning into the appearance of the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram. Hundreds of millions of light and dark characters floated above the Tai Chi diagram. These characters were all formed by the fusion of light and dark, mysterious and unfathomable. But at this moment, all the light and dark characters suddenly disintegrated together, turning into hundreds of millions of bright light rays and hundreds of millions of dark black lines. It was as if the boundless light and the boundless darkness corresponded. All the light rays gathered together, instantly magnifying the light and illuminating the void. All the black lines also gathered together, suddenly like a bottomless abyss, swallowing all the light. In this boundless light, the shadow of a Buddha rose faintly. From its appearance, it seemed to be one of the 5 Buddhas of Buddhism, the infinite light Buddha. In the dark abyss, there seemed to be a shadow of a Taoist wearing a Taoist robe. His expression was dark and gloomy. Now, people would find him extremely unfamiliar. However, people from the Middle Ages would be able to recognize that this person was one of the prime diabolism sects of the Middle Ages. He was the founder of the shadow diabolism, the dark shadow diabolism. This person unearthed the ruins left behind by the immemorial Dark Emperor and obtained part of the Dark Emperor's orthodoxy. In the end, he established his own sect and founded the Shadow Fiend path. The two figures stood facing each other, as if they were two extremes of light and darkness. However, at this moment, a change occurred once again. The boundless light gradually disappeared. The boundless light was no longer dazzling. Instead, it was extremely clear. It gave off a feeling that there were no secrets hidden in it. It was as if anyone could understand, recognize, observe, and understand it. On the other hand, the dark shadow devil Exalt's figure gradually vanished, and the boundless darkness changed its appearance as well. It wasn't pure and mysterious darkness any longer, and it was instead a type of even deeper darkness. It was obscure, invisible, unknown, indescribable, and indescribable. It was bewildering and difficult to understand. The two profound concepts stood in opposition and gradually fused together. They seemed to be in stark opposition to each other, but they seemed to transform and merge with each other. When the two concepts of light and darkness fused together, they finally formed a huge word. It looked clear and simple, but it also seemed inexplicable and difficult to grasp. This word was the word Yi, but it looked completely different from when the light and darkness characters were formed. It was clearly the same word, but at this moment, it seemed to contain an even more profound truth. The word "yi" appeared on the Taiji diagram formed by Zhu Yi's essence soul. Then, it gradually changed its appearance, splitting into 8 and separating into 8 directions. Zhu Yi's clear voice sounded in the void. The heavens move vigorously, and a gentleman ceaselessly strives to improve himself. The earth moves vigorously, and a gentleman carries goods with virtue. The wind follows the wind, and a gentleman acts according to his orders. The thunder gradually shakes, and a gentleman cultivates through fear. Kindness is like water, and a gentleman begins with planning. Fire is like man, and a gentleman distinguishes things by their race. Footsteps and shoes, and a gentleman distinguishes the will of the people. Zhen Shan Qian, and a gentleman benefits the few with the many. The word "yi" seemed to split into 8 images, condensing on the Taiji diagram. It was the 8 trigrams of mountains and lakes after the heaven and earth, wind and lightning. After that, the 8 trigrams continued to evolve. It wasn't in terms of power or substance, but it was constantly clarifying all kinds of truths and answering all kinds of questions. Above the Tai Chi diagram, as the myriad of things continued to evolve, the Kunlun Dragon King, Celestial Dipper Sword Venerable, Jade Sky Dragon King, and Ho Ning Dragon King, who was about to leave this place due to the power of the Xian Sea, had a strange feeling in their hearts at the same time. It was as if there was a pair of eyes staring at them from the Taiji diagram. There was no sadness, no joy, no emotion, only a vague belief, a desire to know everything and distinguish everything. Other than the Kunlun Dragon King and Sword Venerable Tian Gang, who were slightly better off, the Blue Sky Dragon King and Honing Dragon King felt as if everything about them was being seen through by that pair of eyes. Although the Blue Sky Dragon King was extremely weak, he calmed himself down, and the anxiety in his heart eased a lot. However, Honing Dragon King felt that all his movements were exposed to that pair of eyes. He even had a ridiculous feeling that the other party seemed to understand him better than he understood himself. At this moment, Zhu Yi's calm voice came from the Wenhua Taiji painting. The power of the profound sea is indeed profound. However, the profound sea is extremely unstable at this moment. There are many flaws in the way it receives the profound sea. Without these flaws, Blue Sky Dragon King, you would have been able to retreat safely. As he spoke, the Taiji diagram and the Paramitha bridge suddenly merged. Then, a golden rainbow flashed across the void, traversing endless space in an instant, and appeared in front of the Blue Sky Dragon King. The Kunlun Dragon King roared and forced Sword Venerable Tiangang back. He turned around and pounced at Zhu Yi. Kunlun Dragon King, you were injured by my master in the past, and it affected you greatly. As Zhu Yi spoke, the golden rainbow formed by the Paramitha golden bridge suddenly trembled. The Taiji diagram and the golden bridge fused together, turning into a giant that could support the heavens and the earth. 7 colorful halos shone on top of his head, and the mysterious diagram of the Tao of Change was still floating above his head. Zhu Yi's body suddenly flashed, and he suddenly split into thousands of clones. That huge golden giant actually split into countless figures in an instant. Each of the giants was majestic, and their bodies flashed with golden light. 7 halos revolved above their heads, and the Yi Dao diagram rotated silently above their heads. This was the primordial Dark Emperor's ultimate technique, the One Yuan Dark Shadow Body, which was later passed down to the Shadow Demon Dao. The Kunlun Dragon King's eyes turned even colder, and he let out a low roar that sounded like muffled thunder. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a large amount of golden dragon flames. The destructive power of the fire dragon race's dragon fire, the vast magic power of the yellow dragon race, and the magic power of the jade dragon race's jade dragon flames were all gathered into one body, and it swept across the void. The Dark Emperor had fallen in the hands of the dragon race's absolute sovereign, Xian Shang. Before that, the Dark Emperor's One Yuan Dark Shadow Body had once been a problem for many experts of the demon race. Absolute Sovereign Xian Shang had broken this technique, and his experience was naturally passed down by the dragon race. However, the Kunlun Dragon King didn't look relaxed at this moment. Although his dragon flames swept across the void, and a large number of Zhu Yi's shadow clones were destroyed, Zhu Yi's clones seemed to be infinite. The dragon flames only destroyed the clones, and the Kunlun Dragon King couldn't find the real Zhu Yi. Kunlun Dragon King, you know it yourself, right? With your strength, you should be able to break through my 1 yuan dark shadow body. But now, you don't have the strength to do so. It was as if thousands of Zhu Yis were speaking at the same time in the void. Unfortunately, I couldn't see through this before. It was only after I comprehended this new technique that I was able to see through some of your weaknesses and find the best way to deal with you. As they spoke, although most of the shadow clones were destroyed by the Kunlun Dragon King, there were still many clones that appeared in front of the Blue Sky Dragon King. This should not be your only weakness. However, this new technique of mine hasn't been perfected yet, so I can only see through this for now. I can't defeat you now, but you won't be able to protect the Blue Sky Dragon King. When the Kunlun Dragon King was attacking Zhu Yi, Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper was also attacking the Kunlun Dragon King. Looking at the scene in front of him, he had a clear understanding. Tian Long Kuan is still very powerful. His demon power is boundless, and he is proficient in all kinds of Tao of heaven and earth. In a battle of attrition, his magic power is vigorous and he is not afraid at all. When he activates his full strength, his instantaneous explosive power is still very strong. However, after an intense explosive power, the circulation of his demon power will be slightly sluggish, and it will be difficult for him to unleash his full strength continuously. To break through the 1 yuan dark shadow body, one had to rely on the advantage of strength. One had to spread out the area of attack and attack with the real body and the clones at the same time. Otherwise, it would be hard for anyone to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. This was because when the clones were destroyed, Zhu Yi was constantly producing new shadow clones. Therefore, the Kunlun Dragon King's attacks had to ensure that they covered a large area of attack, and that they had to be strong enough to deal with a single target and be sustained. If it was before he was injured by Lin Feng, this wouldn't be a problem for the Kunlun Dragon King. However, at this moment, he felt a little powerless. The Kunlun Dragon King was actually very clear about his own weakness, and he had been hiding it very well. Previously, Zhu Yi, Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper, and Stonefeather hadn't noticed it. But now, Zhu Yi had seen through this problem, and he had taken the most targeted measures. In fact, if the Kunlun Dragon King was given enough time, he would still be able to break the 1 yuan dark shadow body. After all, to Zhu Yi, using the 1 yuan dark shadow body would consume a lot of energy if his dark shadow body was constantly broken. But now, Zhu Yi didn't seek to defeat the Kunlun Dragon King. With Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper holding him back, he forcefully shook off the Kunlun Dragon King and came before the Blue Sky Dragon King. Everything happened in an instant. The Mystic Sea power was sweeping up the Blue Sky Dragon King and was about to disappear into the void. Seeing this, Zhu Yi smiled and said, "Indeed, it seems that the space is unstable, and the domain passageway seems to be distorting and collapsing at any moment. However, the real reason is that there has been a change in the concept of time, causing this flaw in the receiving method. The opportunity is fleeting. If my method isn't right, the opportunity will be lost. However, Blue Sky Dragon King, you are destined to not be able to leave today." The golden giant that Zhu Yi had transformed into put his palms together, and then his palms spread out to the sides. In the center, there was a graceful brilliance. It was fleeting, and in the blink of an eye, it lit up. In the midst of life and death, it showed the change of time in an instant, and the profound concept of the passing of a breath. Chapter 1191. The Wenhua Tai Chi diagram formed by Zhu Yi's primordial spirit merged with the Permitha bridge and transformed into a huge golden giant. Between the golden giant's palms, a ball of profound brilliance appeared. In an instant, it flickered and flickered, containing the true meaning of instant time. This was the instant brilliance that he inherited from Lin Feng. Zhu Yi spread his arms, and the light scattered in all directions like sand. It seemed to have transformed into a river of time that was ever-changing. Under Zhu Yi's control, the river-like light landed on the crack in space that was guiding the Blue Sky Dragon King out of this place. The space crack, which was already shaking non-stop, suddenly stopped moving. Then, it became even more distorted. The Xian Sea in the illusion of light and shadow seemed to roar even more violently, but it also caused the illusion of light and shadow to collapse even more. The blue sky dragon king's body suddenly stopped in the void. He was shocked. Then, he saw the distant Xian Sea gradually disappear, and the illusion formed by the guidance method twisted into a black hole. The space kept shattering, and the black hole kept expanding. Terrifying cracks spread out in the surrounding void. The pitch-black universe was like a piece of paper. With the blue sky dragon king as the center, it was constantly being torn to the periphery. The Kun dragon king roared and rushed to Zhu Yi again. The golden giant that Zhu Yi had transformed into was fearless. He stared at the Kun dragon king, and the diagram of change of way above his head kept changing. In Zhu Yi's consciousness, there seemed to be a clear and bright light in the void. Among these crisscrossing and disorderly light, there was a large number of blurry air masses floating in the air. It's a bit difficult, but it's enough for now. Zhu Yi's body suddenly turned in the void. That huge body seemed to have instantly turned into a faint stream of light and disappeared. In Zhu Yi's own divine sense, he was shuttling through the clear and bright light in the void. As he traveled, the light moved horizontally and vertically, and he saw that the blurry air masses began to disappear one after another. In the eyes of the Kun Dragon King and Sword Venerable Tiangang, Zhu Yi's body suddenly lit up as he faced the Kun Dragon King's terrifying attack. Although it was still a golden radiance, the concept of power contained in this radiance was not only the majestic principle of the golden Paramitha bridge surpassing everything and leading everything, but there were also many other concepts of power. These concepts were surprisingly similar to the great Tao of heaven and earth that the Kun Dragon King's primordial heavenly dragon mystic power. Although it wasn't complete and wasn't the full heavenly dragon mystic power, and it wasn't as strong as the Kun Dragon King's primordial heavenly dragon mystic power, and the Kun Dragon King's mystic power, E, and E, were still able to suppress the Kun EE. Although it was incomplete and not the complete heavenly dragon divine art, and although it was still inferior in terms of pure strength and was still suppressed by the Kunlun Dragon King, the gap in strength between the two had been greatly reduced. The most important thing was that his sudden change had stunned the Kunlun Dragon King. In Zhu Yi's consciousness, the clear and bright light in front of him was increasing, and the blurry air masses were decreasing. Gradually, the thing that was previously covered by the thick fog was revealed. It was a primordial celestial dragon of unfathomable length that seemed to fill the heavens. The heavenly dragon seemed to be in a deep sleep and didn't have any reaction to Zhu Yi. The primordial heavenly dragon was still covered by a lot of fog, but the amount of air masses was decreasing. The body of the heavenly dragon started to show more and more in front of Zhu Yi. As his consciousness cleared away the fog, in reality, Zhu Yi was also dealing with the furious Kun Dragon King's storm-like attacks. The concepts contained in the heavenly dragon mystic power are too profound. Even though there's a big gap between my cultivation level and this heavenly dragon Kun's, I've already benefited a lot. Zhu Yi's expression was calm. Other than the incomplete heavenly dragon radiance, he used the first Yuan dark shadow body again to fight the Kun Dragon King in the most effective way. Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper looked at Zhu Yi in shock. He had a complicated look in his eyes. What exactly is he? However, he still pulled himself together and used his sword Dao to activate the ancient Celestial Dipper sword to attack the Kun Dragon King. The Kun Dragon King was shocked and angry. He kept roaring, but he couldn't do anything to Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper. With Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper helping to share the burden, Zhu Yi kept switching between his real body and the dark shadow doppelgangers. Although the Kun Dragon King wanted to protect him, the moment he was distracted by Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper, Zhu Yi's real body had already switched with a dark shadow doppelganger. He moved away from the Kun Dragon King and came before the Blue Sky Dragon King. The weakened Blue Sky Dragon King felt a chill in his heart. The giant formed by the fusion of Zhu Yi and the Paramitha Golden Bridge had already slammed its palm down. The Blue Sky Dragon King found it ironic and ridiculous that there was a heavenly dragon's radiance among the tens of thousands of golden lights. Although the state of power contained in this light was incomplete, the Blue Sky Dragon King was very familiar with it. As long as he recovered from his current weakened state, he would be able to enter the Dharma-ending realm and achieve the body of the primordial celestial dragon. After he became a celestial dragon, the radiance that was attacking him would be even more perfect and complete. Because he was born as a jade dragon, in terms of the jade dragon's ability to break through all techniques, he would surpass other primordial celestial dragons of the same level. But now, a human cultivator had unleashed that power to crush his head with a single palm strike. At the last moment of the Blue Sky Dragon King's life, he couldn't resist and could only watch as Zhu Yi's palm slammed down on him. He felt that it was ridiculous. The last sound he heard was the Kunlun Dragon King's angry but helpless roar. The Blue Sky Dragon King was the leader of the Blue Dragon clan. He was the fourth most powerful person in the Xianhai Dragon clan, only inferior to the Yuan Dragon King, the Kunlun Dragon King, and the Shin Dragon King. He was only one step away from the Dharma-ending realm. Even under the condition that he survived the Dharma-ending tribulation of Sword Venerable Tiangang, he had almost completed the initial tribulation. As long as he recovered from the last tribulation, he would achieve the body of the primordial celestial dragon and enter the Dharma-ending realm, becoming the fourth great demon of the dragon clan to achieve the Dharma-ending realm. However, he was killed by the second disciple of the Mystic Gates sect master, Zhu Yi, in the void outside the realm. Far away from the battlefield, Ho Ning Dragon King watched the scene in a daze. He felt a deep chill in his heart. During the fierce battle with the Taishu Temple in the Xianhai Sea, the Haotian mirror of the Taishu Temple suddenly became unstable. As a result, the Dragon Clan suppressed the Haotian mirror and forced it into a defensive position. The Dragon Clan powerhouses finally exhaled and fought their way out of the Xianhai Sea. They even defeated the Great Qin Dynasty and the Immortal Dragon City, killed Qin Emperor Stonefeather, and were about to completely destroy the Immortal Dragon City. The Immortal Dragon City had been a great humiliation since the primordial era. At that time, the Blue Sky Dragon King, Ho Ning Dragon King, and the other Dragon Clan powerhouses would never have thought that the situation would take a turn for the worse. Zhu Yi and the Tiangang Sword Venerable, who were trapped by the Kunlun Dragon King, suddenly came out. The Tiangang Sword Venerable even injured the Blue Sky Dragon King with the Dharma-ending tribulation. They thought that they could escape safely with the Xianhai Sea receiving spell. However, Zhu Yi broke the receiving spell and killed the Blue Sky Dragon King despite the Kunlun Dragon King's pressure. Ho Ning Dragon King was filled with bitterness when he recalled how high-spirited he was when he first came out of the Xianhai Sea. In addition to Dragon King Lu Yan, who had died in the hands of Zhu Yi, the Dragon Clan had undoubtedly suffered heavy losses when they came out of the Xianhai Sea. It was the most serious loss they had suffered since the end of the war between the two worlds. What shocked Ho Ning Dragon King even more was that Zhu Yi's strength had increased without warning. It was even more bizarre and inexplicable. In terms of cultivation level, Zhu Yi was still at the primordial spirit incarnation realm. After Lin Feng's divine light of creation disappeared, the Permitha Golden Bridge was still surrounded by 7 colorful halos. However, as the diagram of changes above Zhu Yi's head spun, it seemed to contain an indescribable strange power. This sudden change had directly taken the Blue Sky Dragon King's life. Zhu Yi was Lin Feng's second disciple. Because he had the Dharma treasure of creation, the Permitha Golden Bridge, he had always been regarded as the strongest among Lin Feng's disciples. He was also thought by the demon clan's powerhouses to be the only one among Lin Feng's disciples who had the ability to participate in the battle of the Dharma-ending realm powerhouses. However, being able to participate in the battle and having the ability to kill a powerhouse like the Blue Sky Dragon King were two completely different things. At this moment, he had a powerhouse like Sword Venerable Tiangang fighting alongside him. However, other than the Blue Sky Dragon King, his opponent was also the Kun Dragon King, an unparalleled great demon who could easily defeat Sword Venerable Tiangang. After today's battle, Zhu Yi's name would be known throughout the entire Great Heaven primordial world. It was not only because he was the disciple of the Celestial Gates sect master Lin Feng, nor was it because he had the Dharma treasure of creation, the Permitha Golden Bridge. It was also because he had completely sublimated his own potential to become a terrifying force that would make people look at him. After Wang Lin, Zhu Yi had also stepped onto the world's biggest stage. He had started moving from the edge of the stage to the center. Although Sword Venerable Tiangang was still pained by the fact that Zhu Yi had teamed up with him to fight the Kun Dragon King, he was also thinking about a lot of things. To him, if it was a pure one-on-one fight, it would not be difficult to kill the Blue Sky Dragon King. Moreover, when Zhu Yi killed the Blue Sky Dragon King, the Blue Sky Dragon King had already been hit by his Dharma-ending tribulation. The Blue Sky Dragon King was extremely weak because of the tribulation, so he could not fight back against Zhu Yi, who had the Prometha bridge with him. However, to kill the Blue Sky Dragon King under the double protection of the Xianhai ritual and the Kun Dragon King was extremely difficult. At least, Sword Venerable Tiangang knew that he had already given up on killing the Blue Sky Dragon King the moment the Xianhai ritual was activated. Everything that happened after that caught him off guard. At this moment, looking at Zhu Yi and the Prometha Golden Bridge, Celestial Dipper Sword Venerable had mixed feelings in his heart. Celestial Sect of Wonders, the Kun Dragon King was also staring at Zhu Yi. His eyes were cold and emotionless, only filled with boundless killing intent. Suddenly, a voice rang in his ears. Kun, retreat quickly. It was the Yuan Dragon King's voice. The Kun Dragon King frowned. I haven't lost yet. Today, I will kill this brat in front of me even if I am severely injured. Yuan Dragon King's voice was calm and deep. I already know about what happened to Jade Sky, but I can't leave the Profound Sea yet. The Profound Gate's master, Lin Feng, already has the intention to leave the Spirit Abyss Mountain. The Profound Handle won't try to stop him. Even though he's here for Yuda that has reappeared, if you continue to stay there, he might very well go and find you first. Chapter 1192. Yuan Dragon King's words made the Kun Dragon King even angrier. Last time, I had to retreat because you were still recovering from your tribulation and Xinyi hadn't reached the Dharma-ending realm yet. Now that you've recovered and Xinyi has reached the Dharma-ending realm, I don't have to worry anymore. No matter how strong the master of the Celestial Sect is, he's not enough to make me fear him. At most, I'll die. Instead of retreating like a coward, I'd rather die fighting here today. Yuan Dragon King's reaction was obviously within Yuan Dragon King's expectations. His tone didn't change at all. He said calmly, if you continue to fight, it's still unknown whether you can avenge Blue Sky Dragon. However, the immortal dragon city that the humans made with the remains of the ancestral dragon still exists. The Kun Dragon King's expression stiffened. The anger in his eyes became even more intense, and he felt deeply humiliated. It wasn't because of the encounter between him and Blue Sky Dragon King. Instead, it was because of the immortal dragon city, which had been a great humiliation for the entire dragon race since the primeval age. Yuan Dragon King's calm tone was like a surging ocean, and he couldn't help but reveal some anger. Don't forget why you guys came out of the Xianhai Sea. Whenever he thought of the existence of the immortal dragon city, even the current #1 powerhouse of the dragon race couldn't suppress his anger and resentment. The Kunlun Dragon King looked at the dark void. The black hole caused by the destruction of the mysterious sea guiding ritual was still unstable under the influence of Zhu Yi, the Kunlun Dragon King, and Sword Venerable Tiangang. However, the size of the black hole had shrunk drastically, as if it would calm down soon. In the depths of the black hole, one could vaguely see the immortal dragon city slowly disappearing into the black hole. After losing its master's control, the Dharma treasure's origin spirit fell into a deep slumber. At this moment, it gradually disappeared into the void. The power of the black hole couldn't devour it, so the immortal dragon city would continue to drift aimlessly in the endless void like a lonely boat. This endless drift would only stop when the treasure's origin spirit woke up from its slumber. Zhu Yi also looked toward the immortal dragon city. The diagram of changes above his head kept expanding. Suddenly, the current situation of the immortal dragon city appeared in his mind. The information was messy and disorderly, and most of it was useless. However, there were many important tips and tricks, allowing Zhu Yi to become the person with the clearest grasp of the current situation in Immortal Dragon City. A look of understanding appeared in his eyes. That sacrificial ritual actually caused such a huge change. It's really unexpected. Kunlun Dragon King suddenly used his demonic power to sweep Honing Dragon King away before pouncing towards Immortal Dragon City. Zhu Yi saw this and immediately acted to stop him. Celestial Dipper Sword Venerable looked at Immortal Dragon City. His eyes also flickered as he joined the battle. The battle between the three experts shook the void, causing the black hole to gradually collapse and the Immortal Dragon City to sink into it. Kunlun Dragon King raised his head and roared angrily. He used the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody, which condensed into waves of golden ripples that spread in all directions. Wherever the ripples reached, the void shattered again, revealing the Immortal Dragon City again. When the golden ripples landed on the Immortal Dragon City, it was as if the Immortal Dragon City was plated with a layer of golden radiance. However, after a moment of silence, Zhu Yi suddenly opened his mouth and let out a long roar. His roar seemed to contain the roar of the dragon race, but it also sounded like a scholar who had been cultivating for a long time. His roar also seemed to condense into a white gas that flashed with golden light. It soared into the sky and sliced the golden ripples formed by the Kunlun Dragon King's roar like a sharp blade. Although it wasn't like the Kunlun Dragon King's Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody that could cover the entire universe, it was concentrated and could interfere with the Kunlun Dragon King. After his interruption, the golden ripples formed by the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody immediately condensed again and broke the white gas. However, the Immortal Dragon City had already sunk into darkness again. However, Zhu Yi was also swept by the golden ripples and was sent flying backward. However, he quickly stabilized his footing and went to face the Kunlun Dragon King again. The Kunlun Dragon King suddenly turned his head and stared at Zhu Yi with a pair of cold eyes. The killing intent and anger in his eyes almost froze the entire void. He fixed his gaze on Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Tiangang. His giant dragon head nodded slightly, but he didn't say anything. His body suddenly became ethereal, turned into a golden light, and instantly disappeared in the void. The Kunlun Dragon King had attained the body of the primordial celestial dragon and possessed many great daos. Among them, the Hui dragon race's ability to shift and transform the void was naturally included. Therefore, the strength of his escape technique was far beyond that of the ordinary demon race. The Kunlun Dragon King had attained the body of the primordial celestial dragon and possessed many great daos. Among them, the Hui dragon race's power of shifting and transforming the void was naturally included. Therefore, the strength of his escape technique was far beyond that of the ordinary demon race. Celestial Dipper Sword Venerable sent the Kun Dragon King off with his eyes. Then, he closed his eyes and kept the ancient Dipper Sword. He lowered his head and looked at his own body. There were a few scars on his body, and there were white spots of light drifting out from them. It was as if he was bleeding. After the Kunlun Dragon King left, Sword Venerable Tiangang closed his eyes and put away the ancient sword Venerable Tiangang. He lowered his head and looked at his body. There were several severe wounds, and white light spots were drifting in the wounds. It was as though he was bleeding. The giant formed by the fusion of Zhu Yi and the Permetha Golden Bridge also turned into a flowing light in the void. The Golden Bridge and the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram were revealed again. The Yi Dao diagram disappeared, and the Wenhua Tai Chi diagram turned back into a human form. Standing on the Permetha Golden Bridge, Zhu Yi said, "It's very difficult." Because of the sudden change in the sacrificial ritual, Stonefeather's magic power imprint was erased from the Immortal Dragon City. Now that the Immortal Dragon City is lost in the void, it will be very difficult for the Great Qin dynasty to find this treasure. He looked at the sword Venerable Tiangang and said, "On the other hand, the Kunlun Dragon King's Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody shook the Immortal Dragon City and left some of his demon power imprint on it. Although it will be difficult for him to find the Immortal Dragon City, it will be much easier than the Great Qin dynasty now that he has some clues." When the changes in the Immortal Dragon City completely settle down and the flow of spirit qi is no longer chaotic, the Kunlun Dragon King might be able to find the Immortal Dragon City using the imprint. The sword Venerable Tiangang also turned to look at Zhu Yi, but he didn't say anything. Zhu Yi also didn't continue on this topic. Instead, he said to the sword Venerable Tiangang, "No matter what, I have to thank you for your help." The sword Venerable Tiangang didn't say anything, but his divine sense reverberated in the void. "You're welcome." The Blue Sky Dragon King and Flame-Flowing Dragon King were killed, and the Kunlun Dragon King and Honing Dragon King escaped. The other dragons in the infinite wilderness land were also forced to retreat. The great Qin dynasty cultivators who were fighting with them heaved a sigh of relief. Lord Ryang Shi Zongmao, who had been severely injured by Dragon King Ho Ning and Bayan Great Sage and could only barely defend against Bayan Great Sage's pressure, could only let out a sigh of relief as he watched Bayan Great Sage and the experts of the dragon race leave. Then, he saw that the Bayan Great Sage retreated in a different direction from the dragon race. This made him feel frustrated, but at the same time, he had more and more doubts. He racked his brains but couldn't figure out what the relationship between the Bayan and the dragon race was, and what enmity he had with the great Qin dynasty. However, the thing that worried Shi Zongmao the most at the moment wasn't the Bayan Great Sage and the dragon race, but the continuous bad news. The great Qin Emperor Stonefeather was killed by the dragon race, and the immortal dragon city was missing. Half of the great Qin dynasty's sky collapsed, and if they didn't deal with it properly, it might even collapse completely. The great Qin dynasty was now at a critical juncture that concerned the survival of the dynasty. A little carelessness could cause them to fall into the abyss. Shi Zongmao was also seriously injured and couldn't fight anymore. To him, the most important thing was to lead the remaining great Qin cultivators back to the Divine Land as soon as possible. The capital of the great Qin dynasty, West Hill City. Nanming monarch Shi Zongtang, who was guarding West Hill City, had already sent other great Qin cultivators to the entrance of the southern wilderness realm to receive them. Not long ago, the great Qin dynasty that was still domineering and had chased the demons into the infinite desolate mainland was now in a precarious situation where it was on the verge of collapse. Zhu Yi and sword Venerable Tiangang didn't advance rashly. Instead, they gathered Xianmen Tianzong and the Shu Mountain cultivators and temporarily returned to the Divine Land through the Realm Passage. They stayed at the exit of the southern wilderness realm to monitor the situation on the other side. What made them uneasy was that although the Kunlun Dragon King had retreated, the other primordial heavenly dragon, Huangshan Dragon King, had come out of the Xian Sea and arrived at the infinite wilderness realm. Although his whereabouts were uncertain and he didn't deliberately get close to the entrance of the realm passage, the news that came from time to time showed that this demon was clearly watching this realm passage. Obviously, the Kunlun Dragon King had temporarily returned to the Xian Sea to recuperate, and another expert of the Dharma-ending realm of the dragon race had replaced him. Compared to the hot-tempered Kunlun Dragon King, Shen Dragon King's temperament was obviously much calmer. However, he was like a mountain, giving people a heavy sense of oppression. Although Shen Dragon King didn't take any substantial action, and even his whereabouts were unpredictable, he would show his existence from time to time, which made Zhu Yi and sword Venerable Tiangang unable to leave easily. Both sides fell into a stalemate. While Zhu Yi, sword Venerable Tiangang, and the great Qin dynasty were fighting with the dragon race, Lin Feng, who was on the Spirit Abyss mountain range, also started to make his move. At the moment, Lin Feng wasn't at the peak of Jade Jing Mountain. Instead, he was in the mysterious Heaven Time Light Grotto Heaven at the peak of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree. As long as he didn't fall into the state of thoughtless tranquility, he could deal with the changes in the outside world freely. He sat on the small mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree in the Grotto Heaven. His eyes were clear, and he kept thinking about the situation in front of him. The Yudu race had returned to the Heaven Primordial Great World. This was undoubtedly a huge nightmare for the human cultivation world. Under the current situation, it wasn't good for Lin Feng to continue guarding the Spirit Abyss mountain range. He had to return to the Divine Land, or the Yudu race would turn the Divine Land upside down. The Great Sage, the Enchantress, and Great Saint Zhu Yan were naturally very clear about the situation, so they didn't have the intention to stop Lin Feng from leaving. They also wouldn't fight to the death with Lin Feng for the Yudu race. If Lin Feng returned to the Divine Land to deal with the Yudu race, they would have no one to restrain them, and they could move freely. Just as the great sage and the other great demons were thinking about this, Lin Feng's voice suddenly came from Jade Jing Mountain. You guys seem to be very happy. There's nothing to be happy about. I'm indeed leaving this place, but I can leave, but you can't. After saying that, a flowing light suddenly flew out from the mysterious Heaven-Time Light Grotto Heaven and shone in the sky above Jade Jing Mountain. Chapter 1193. Previously, Lin Feng had restrained the great sage of all heavens, and the enchantress at Spirit Abyss Mountain alone. Meanwhile, the Taishu Temple had restrained the dragon race in the mysterious sea, restricting the movements of most of the strong practitioners of the demon race. Thus, it was convenient for the other strong practitioners of the human race to move. That was how they got their advantage in the early stages of the war between the two worlds. After that, although there was a sudden change in the mysterious sea, as long as they could withstand the fiercest and most unexpected wave of the demon race's counterattack, the situation could still be maintained at a stalemate. However, with the return of the Yudu race, the situation was completely different. If many strong practitioners of Yudu descended on the divine land now, it would undoubtedly bring disaster to the human cultivation world. If Lin Feng left Spirit Abyss Mountain to assist the divine land, the happiest people would undoubtedly be the ancient devil ape race and the enchantress. The initiative would shift from the hands of the Yudu race to their hands, and the situation would still be extremely advantageous to the demon race. When Lin Feng was restrained by the Yudu race, the three great demons of the last days realm would also form a terrifying force. However, this matter was also within Lin Feng's consideration. If he were to leave the ancient devil ape race and heavenly enchantment great sage behind and deal with the Yudu race himself, it would be no different from tearing down the east wall to pay the west wall. Putting out fires like this wouldn't be of much help to the overall situation. Instead, he would be led by the nose by the demon race, constantly mobilizing them. Such a passive response wasn't what Lin Feng wanted. If he wanted to turn the situation around, he had to take the initiative to attack. Thus, after knowing that Yudu had returned, Lin Feng's first reaction was to enter mysterious Heaven's Time Light Grotto Heaven, other than spreading the news to the other powers of the human race. Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission too. 2. Special reward for the main mission released. Looking at the two balls of light floating in front of him, Lin Feng blinked. This is a little out of my expectations. Looks like handing in the mission late was indeed worth it. However, it's still a happy accident. Lin Feng put away one of the balls of light and then gently tapped the other ball of light with his finger. The ball of light turned into a stream of light and flew out of the mysterious Heaven-Time Light Paradise. The ball of light suddenly spread out and turned into an extremely huge spirit pattern. The pattern looked simple, but it was also very strange. It was difficult to identify and understand what it meant. However, the moment the image appeared, the expressions of the great sage and the enchantress changed slightly. They immediately recalled some unpleasant memories from the depths of their memories. Zhu Yan's expression also changed slightly. He turned to look at the great sage and said, "Is it the same power and aura as the seal?" He'd always been accustomed to running amok, and he'd successfully ascended to the last days realm. In his opinion, there were truly too few things in this world that could arouse reverence in him. However, at this moment, looking at the huge spirit pattern above his head, an extremely ominous feeling arose in Zhu Yan's heart. His intuition told him that the farther away from the pattern, the better. Back when Lin Feng went to the infinite wilderness to look for Golden Cicada, he'd used the Heaven Interception Seal to deal with the Kunlun Dragon King, causing the Kunlun Dragon King to suffer a great loss. This had also left a deep impression on the other great demons who'd been watching at that time. After returning to the Spirit Abyss Mountain, the great sage had specially emphasized this to all the experts of the ape race, telling everyone, including Zhu Yan, to be vigilant. In the desolate ancient star ocean, Lin Feng hadn't used the Heaven Interception Seal, but at that time, the great sage had actually been secretly vigilant. Zhu Yan might not have cared about other things, but after seeing the traces of light and shadow that the great sage had copied using demonic power, he naturally had a deep fear of the Heaven Interception Seal. Although he hadn't been there to see it with his own eyes, at this moment, he was immediately vigilant as he tried to figure out the power contained in the huge spirit pattern above his head. Yes, it's exactly the same, and the power and aura are exactly the same as that seal. The great sage was also livid. And it's even more troublesome. That seal can only deal with one target at a time, but this pattern seems to cover the whole world. Everything under its radiance will be affected. The light on the spirit pattern shone, forming an extremely thick and wide special realm, as if separating the main peak of the spirit abyss mountain below the pattern from the vast thousand domains of the infinite wilderness. In the area covered by the light, an extremely mysterious power burst out, causing the great sage, Zhu Yan, and the enchantress above to feel extremely uncomfortable. His demon soul and his true form seemed to be separated by this strange power that suddenly arrived. At this moment, the three great demons of the age of cultivation decline felt as if they were about to lose control of their true forms. It's the same as when Tian Longkuan was. The enchantress's heart also sank slightly. Her body, which seemed to be blurry under the fog, began to become even more blurred, faintly discernible. The cultivation of the demon race was completely different from that of the human race. The cultivation of the demon race was in line with the heavens, seeking to merge with heaven and earth, drawing heaven and earth into one's body, and finally replacing heaven and earth. They were heaven and heaven and earth were them. Whether it was the omnipotent sage, the enchantress sage, or the Zhu Yan sage, their connection with heaven and earth had reached an extremely profound level. When they were at their peak, it would be difficult to sever the connection between them and the vast thousand domains, as well as the connection between their demon souls and their true bodies. But at this moment, under the cover of the huge rune light, the three great demons of the age of cultivation decline felt as if their bodies no longer belonged to them. That rune was the upgraded version of the sky interception seal that Lin Feng had obtained in the past. It could be used on a large area, with multiple targets. Although it was similar to the sky interception seal in terms of individual strength, it could cover a large area, and any target within this area would be affected by the power of the seal. Lin Feng came out of the dark heaven timelight cave and stood at the top of Yujing Mountain, looking down at the main peak of the Divine Abyss mountain range. He gently put his palms together, and the huge Yujing Mountain fell down, pressing on the Divine Abyss mountain range. The great sage let out an unwilling roar, and tens of thousands of demon monkeys on the Divine Abyss mountain roared at the sky together, and endless demonic aura soared into the sky. The demonic aura and light gradually formed the shape of an extremely huge ape between heaven and earth. It was even bigger than the great sage, who had revealed his true form. The void where the ape appeared was distorted, and it stood at the foot of Yujing Mountain. It raised its palms and forcibly pushed against Yujing Mountain. Large amounts of white light flickered on the giant ape's body, and the powerful force made it impossible for Lin Feng to continue descending. The great sage and great sage Zhu Yan looked angrily at Lin Feng above. The great sage roared, and the giant ape formed by the demonic power of the Divine Abyss mountain clawed at the rune formed by the sky interception seal. However, this claw directly missed, as if it was passing through the air and flowing water. It streaked across the pattern, and no matter how the giant claw stirred, although the pattern was shattered like a reflection in water, it immediately returned to its original state in the next moment. The great sage's heart sank. "I can't touch it." The effect of the seal took effect immediately. Even if the great sage and the other demons left the area covered by the seal, the effect would still continue. Different from the original sky interception seal, which disappeared immediately after taking effect, the effect of the sky interception seal depended on the duration of the strange rune itself. Lin Feng looked down at the Divine Abyss mountain and said calmly, as expected of the ancestral land of the primordial demonic ape clan. Back then, it was managed by Jihuang Xinyuan for a long time. If it hadn't been destroyed by Yu Huang's celestial sea once, it would have been even stronger than it is now. Under the protection of the demonic power of the Divine Abyss mountain, although the strength of the great sage and great sage Zhu Yan was affected, they managed to forcibly stabilize their souls. Their undying demon souls and true bodies did not really separate. But the hearts of the two great demon leaders of the ape clan sank to the bottom. They could clearly feel that once they left the boundary of the Divine Abyss Mountain, the power of the Sky Interception Seal would immediately take effect. Before they removed the effect of the Sky Interception Seal, their undying demon souls and true bodies would be directly separated, and their magical powers and demonic powers would be greatly reduced. Even if they left the Divine Abyss Mountain, they would be limited. Perhaps only a few people could match them, but it would be difficult for them to affect the overall situation. Even at this moment, if they dared to follow Lin Feng and leave the Divine Abyss Mountain range, Lin Feng would suddenly attack them, and they might directly die on the spot. The strange rune formed by the Sky Interception Seal could not be destroyed, so the two great demon apes could only stay in the area of the Divine Abyss Mountain range and patiently wait for the effect of the Sky Interception Seal to end. Only then would they have enough confidence to go out. What made the two great demons annoyed was that no one knew when the power of the Sky Interception Seal would be exhausted. And compared to the Great Sage and Great Sage Zhu Yan, who at least had the protection of the Divine Abyss Mountain range, the Enchantress was undoubtedly in a greater crisis at this moment. At this moment, she was really shocked to the point that her undying demon soul and true body were separated from each other, and her true body fell into a state of loss of control. In the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation, a mass of dark clouds kept rolling, and a vague shadow could be seen in it. At the same time, there was a flash of brilliance. Being restrained by the Sky Interception Seal, not only was the Enchantress's true body sealed, but even her other magical powers and demonic powers were also affected, and her strength decreased. In the dark clouds, there seemed to be spots of starlight shining, and the brilliance kept flashing. The power of the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation was also activated to the extreme. However, the yin and yang life and death formation under the command of Ding of Shenzhou suddenly unfolded, turning into light curtains that wrapped around the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation, preventing it from escaping. The great sage's face was livid. Although he was currently trapped in the Divine Abyss Mountain because of the Sky Interception Seal, as long as he did not leave the Divine Abyss Mountain, his strength would be affected, but he could still activate the power of the Divine Abyss Mountain to launch an attack. Whether it was out of anger or out of consideration of being in the same boat, the great sage had to activate the demonic power of the Divine Abyss Mountain and attack Lin Feng at this moment. On the side, great sage Zhu Yan looked equally irritable. As his 4 feet trampled, the void distorted violently, generating a majestic force like a vortex. This vortex fell into the palm of the giant ape formed by the demonic power of the Divine Abyss Mountain, and the giant ape reached out to grab Yujing Mountain. However, Lin Feng was already prepared. The light curtains formed by the yin and yang life and death formation under the control of Ding of Shenzhou suddenly reversed between heaven and earth and came under Yujing Mountain, suppressing the giant ape's palm together with Yujing Mountain. The 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation in the sky suddenly broke free and immediately manifested the light shadows of the primordial celestial dragon, chaos, golden-winged roc, and divine monkey. They turned into the time and space wheel formation, protecting the enchantress to leave. However, Lin Feng himself gently tapped the tip of his foot on the top of Yujing Mountain, and in the next moment, he was already in front of the demon formation. Then, with the momentum of splitting the sky, a fierce sky-destroying sword chi rose up and slashed at the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation. Chapter 1194. Lin Feng's ferocious heaven-punishing sword chi slashed at the 12 sacred heavens array. The huge demon array's brilliance flowed and resisted the sword. The heavenly enchantment Great Saint was currently in an extremely disadvantageous situation. At this time, she also had no intention of continuing to fight with Lin Feng. Instead, she activated the 12 sacred heavens' wonderful flower formation and transformed it into the time and space wheel wonderful flower formation, intending to retreat. But suddenly, a chaotic and hazy brilliance appeared on Lin Feng's left hand and spread to the surroundings. Everything became hazy and unclear, as if there was only a dim grayish-white left. His eyes were as calm as water, like the flowing river of time. That chaotic and hazy radiance was precisely the celestial pole light. Being swept up by Lin Feng's celestial pole light, the miraculous wheel of time and space's circulation also became sluggish, abruptly pausing in the void. Wherever the hazy brilliance reached, everything between heaven and earth seemed to fall into stillness. It was like a painting. Although it was lifelike, there was no vitality, and it looked unreal. Only the time and space will wondrous formation still continued to operate, wanting to break free from this radiance. The demon formation similarly contained a powerful and profound concept of time. Even though it was disturbed by Lin Feng's celestial extremity cosmic light, it was still functioning. But Lin Feng's body immediately shone with 7 colored halos, and then spread along the celestial extremity light to the time and space will array. Covered by the 7 colored halos, the operation of the time and space will array became even more difficult. It was firmly attracted by Lin Feng's magic power and could not escape. It was the Xianmen heavenly escape technique, which contained a variety of concepts of power. It was mysterious and unfathomable, and even the demon array became unstable. The enchantress's strength was greatly damaged, but at this critical moment, she still pulled herself together. Her low and hoarse voice resounded between heaven and earth. The syllables were strange, and it was not human language. Spectacular collapsing Tao-destroying formation. The wonderful wheel of time and space array in the void suddenly changed. The huge light pillar split again into 12 light pillars. The primordial celestial dragon, golden-winged rock, golden-winged divine monkey, and chaos were the brightest 4 light pillars, while the one where golden-winged rock was dimmed. Replacing it was another pillar of light. Within it was a strange-looking exotic beast. It wasn't very big, only about 10 to 20 feet long. From afar, it looked similar to a dog. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that this strange beast had horns like a deer, head like a camel, ears like a cat, eyes like a prawn, mouth like a donkey, hair like a lion, neck like a snake, abdomen like a crab, scales like a carp, front claws like an eagle, and back claws like a tiger. It arched its waist and raised its buttocks, looking majestic and imposing. Its front legs were upright, and its hind legs were spread apart. It was a Ho, a pure-blooded true Ho, also known as the sky-gazing Ho. The light pillars of perfected Ho, primordial sky dragon, extreme agility divine monkey, and chaos became extremely blinding. The other 8 light pillars gradually vanished, while the 4 light pillars fused back into one, forming an extremely thick light pillar. The concept of power contained within it was completely different from the wonderful wheel of time and space array. Lin Feng could clearly sense the mysterious power that could collapse the heavenly apparatus and destroy all Daos. Wherever the light pillar reached, it seemed to be able to destroy all Daos and destroy all Daos. Be it the primordial sky dragon, extreme agility divine monkey, or chaos, apart from the power of time and space, all of them also contained the concept of power that could destroy all Daos. As for perfected Ho's innate supernatural power, it could seal the birth of chaos and destroy the principles of creation. The powers of these 4 major demon clans had already combined together, instantly forming a seemingly ordinary but extremely terrifying power. The wonderful wheel of time and space array instantly turned into the wonderful wheel of time and destruction array. Immediately, the radiance of the celestial pole cosmic light and the mystic gate heavenly escape that were wrapped around the array were also shaken. The colorful halos produced by the mystic gate heavenly escape flickered continuously, maintaining the celestial pole cosmic light from disintegrating. However, the wonderful wheel of time and space array had given the enchantress a chance to catch his breath, and it immediately turned back into the wonderful wheel of time and space array before escaping and leaving this place. Lin Feng's expression did not change, but his eyes shone brightly. Do you think it's that easy to leave? A Tai Chi pattern appeared on his forehead. Yin and Yang fused and rotated continuously. In the depths of his return to void Dharma body, a true spirit divine pattern shone brightly. Lin Feng put his palms together, and the Yin and Yang returning to origin mystical realm was unleashed, instantly enveloping the demon formation. The enchantress immediately sensed the problem. This mystical realm of his seems to be able to return all things to their origin. It's actually faintly restraining the changes of the wonderful wheel of time and space array. Tian Mei had seen this technique in the vast infinite land back then, and she had already vaguely sensed it. Now that she had personally experienced it, her previous conjecture was instantly verified. However, her previous conjecture was correct, and this was undoubtedly bad news for the enchantress. The wonderful wheel of time and space array was obstructed by the yin and yang returning to origin mystical realm, and the wonderful wheel of time and space array's circulation became sluggish again. Lin Feng then jabbed his finger forward, and a blurry yet terrifying heaven-punishing sword chi instantly flew out, slicing off a portion of the wonderful wheel of time and space array's radiance. The enchantress was left with no choice, and it was difficult for him to escape immediately. Thus, the wonderful wheel of time and space array could only turn back into the wonderful wheel of time and space array to resist Lin Feng's yin and yang returning to origin mystical realm. This spell formation had been operated by the enchantress for many years, and he had collected all kinds of precious materials. It had already reached an extremely profound level. Even though the enchantress was currently in a poor state and was unable to activate the spell formation with his full strength, it still displayed astonishing might. It's much stronger than the current 9 light sky-shattering formation with limited materials. Lin Feng smiled slightly, and his movements were not slow at all. He raised his right hand, and his index and middle fingers stood side by side like a sword. At the tip of his finger, the terrifying sword light formed by the heaven-punishing sword chi was condensed, and rays of black light began to spread in all directions. A thick blood-red pillar of chi soared into the sky, tearing open the sky above, and piercing through the void. Thousands of black light swords revolved around it, and hundreds of millions of complicated formation patterns gradually took shape. Black light flickered, and it turned into a giant ominous sword formation. It was the heaven-punishing sword formation formed by Lin Feng's own magic power. As he waved his hand, under the guidance of this ominous formation, the whole world seemed to have turned into a giant ominous sword, and it slashed towards the wonderful wheel of time and space array. Wherever the sword's edge reached, it seemed as if everything would come to an end, and everything would turn into nothingness. In front of it, everything would be destroyed, and everything would come to an end. Everything would come to an end, and everything would return to nirvana. That seemed to be a power of destruction that was even darker and more profound than the wonderful wheel of time and space array. In front of the enchantress, the whole vast thousand worlds seemed to have turned into a blood-red sword edge, and it slashed towards her and the wonderful wheel of time and space array. What was even more terrifying was that at the edge of the blood-red sword edge, a layer of black and white divine light of creation emerged. For a moment, in the midst of the soaring killing intent, there seemed to be the chanting of celestials and Buddhas, causing the power of the sword to become even more violent, and it slashed through the giant light pillar formed by the demon formation like a hot knife through butter. The wonderful wheel of time and space array that could cause the ritual to collapse and destroy all laws and Taoists was broken by another kind of power of destruction at this moment. At the center of the formation, in a vast mass of dark clouds, there seemed to be an ignorant shadow floating silently, and around this shadow, there were rays of light constantly flowing. These rays of light suddenly stopped and converged into a light shadow. This light shadow let out strange syllables, and a strange wave of mana also came out from it. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. He knew that it was the demon soul of the enchantress. Due to the limitation of the heaven interception sealed boundary, the demon soul of this great demon was separated from his true form. His true form was completely out of control, and the power of the demon soul was also affected. His demon soul could still use his demon power, just like the Kunlun Dragon King back then. In order to deal with the heaven interception seal that was branded on his front right claw, the Kunlun Dragon King executed the method of cutting off one's wrist and attacked the right claw of his true form together with the Jade Sky Dragon King. However, the current situation of the enchantress was different. Previously, when he was illuminated by the light of the heaven interception sealed boundary, his true form was completely affected. If he wanted to cut off his wrist, he would have to destroy his entire body. But if that happened, it would be meaningless. If the demon race completely lost their true form, they could still survive, and they could even possess other physical bodies, but there was little hope for them to continue to improve. At the same time, even if they possessed other physical bodies, even if they were of the same race, they would still be far inferior to their true form. However, the next scene slightly surprised Lin Feng. The light shadow formed by the demon soul of the enchantress gradually became still, and the other shadow in the dark clouds, which seemed to be unconscious and unmoving, began to shake violently, and the extent of the shaking became more and more obvious. Lin Feng naturally recognized that it was the true form of the enchantress. But looking at the situation in front of him, the enchantress actually wanted to destroy his own physical body. The dark clouds exploded with a loud bang. Boundless qi, blood, and majestic demonic power completely exploded at this moment. The true form of a great demon of the Age of Decline suddenly exploded at this moment, and all the power contained in it exploded in an instant. Even the great sage and Zhu Yan, who were on the Divine Abyss mountain range, were dumbfounded when they saw this scene, and their hearts were filled with horror. The higher the realm, the stronger and sturdier the true form is. Not to mention that the enchantress has already reached the Age of Decline. Even demons who have gone through tribulations or have merged with their star souls would find it difficult to control the explosion of their true form. Lin Feng's eyes flickered when he saw this scene. Unless the true form has already suffered great damage, but in that case, even if it explodes, it can't be so powerful. How did she do it? Could it be? Lin Feng's eyes gradually narrowed. This is actually one of her race magical powers. The explosion of the true form of a great demon of the Age of Decline instantly set off a violent power that really had the momentum to sweep the world. Whether it was Lin Feng or the great sage and Zhu Yan on the Divine Abyss mountain below, they could all feel that at this moment, the entire infinite wilderness seemed to be shaking. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold as he stared at the enchantress. You would rather give up your true form than keep the gate of Star Ocean? Chapter 1195. To a greater demon at the last day's realm, the former was more important than the latter in the end when comparing his true form and a star ocean door. Whether it was the great sage, the golden rock great sage, or the white tiger great sage, they might not be able to make their true forms explode on their own initiative without suffering serious damage. But even if they had the ability to do so, most of them would rather give up the Star Sea Gate in order to preserve their true forms. Therefore, in Lin Feng's eyes, the enchantress's actions at this moment were undoubtedly extremely abnormal. Unless... Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. Unless there is a way to reconstruct their true forms. Otherwise, which great demon in the Dharma-ending realm would dare to do this? But even if the enchantress was extraordinarily talented and could do what others could not, reconstructing her true forms was definitely not an easy task for her at her current realm. The self-destruction of her true forms would also greatly damage her vitality, and she would not be able to recover for a long time. With her current actions, even if she could successfully escape, she was destined to be unable to stir up trouble in the upcoming war between the two realms. She could only find a place to cultivate and recuperate. Generally speaking, when a great demon in the Dharma-ending realm was at its peak, it was impossible to self-destruct. But if the true forms of a great demon in the Dharma-ending realm at their peak really self-destructed, the terrifying power that erupted in that instant could destroy heaven and earth, and was far more terrifying than the collapse of a medium-class world. The true forms of every great demon in the Dharma-ending realm were closely connected to the vast thousand domains. Once they collapsed, the vast thousand domains would be affected. At this moment, the enchantress's true forms were destroyed, causing the void around the Spirit Abyss mountain to shatter together. Except for the areas covered by the radiation of the Spirit Abyss mountain and Yujing mountain, everything else in the world was constantly shattering, and then turning into nothingness. The earth was completely annihilated, but it did not become a bottomless abyss, nor was it a deep ravine. Instead, it completely returned to nothingness, as if it was a piece of chaos. The blue sky above their heads also disappeared, bit by bit, and then completely turned into a dark void. In almost an instant, the Spirit Abyss mountain range and Yujing mountain were like two huge islands floating in outer space. Above and below them, there was only chaos and nothingness. The horizon also disappeared. As space distorted, the vast world around the Spirit Abyss mountain seemed to be annihilated along with the enchantress's true body. Under the turbulence of time and space, Spirit Abyss mountain and Jade Capital mountain seemed to have completely left Tianhuang mainland. Only a black stream of light extended out from the bottom of the Spirit Abyss mountain. It was hard to see in the void as it extended into the distance. Beyond the endless void in the distance, one could vaguely sense the domain power of the Great Thousand World. This black stream of light was the connection between the Spirit Abyss mountain and the vast thousand domains. After all, it was the ancestral land of the primordial demonic ape race, the demon race's divine mountain that Jihuang Xinyuan had once managed in the past. But even so, this terrifying power was still shocking. The great sage and Zhu Yan great saint could feel that the area where the Spirit Abyss mountain used to be on Tianhuang mainland was now filled with domain cracks. The violent and chaotic domain power was constantly wreaking havoc, and it was also constantly repairing the wounds of the vast thousand domains. And in front of them, the enchantress's true body exploded, stirring up a wild storm that was constantly shattering the void. New changes were born in the chaos, but they were instantly destroyed by the storm. Then, they were created again, and destroyed again. It was a non-stop cycle, and space could not be stabilized at all. Through the explosion of the demon power turbulence and the layers of void, Lin Feng seemed to be able to see the enchantress's star-like eyes. Silently, the two looked at each other. Although there was some regret in the enchantress's eyes, there was no shame or anger. Other than disappointment, there was more calmness. Keeping the gate of Star Sea, but exploding your true body. Does this mean that you're preparing more hope for the future, and now you're taking the initiative to retreat, indicating that you won't participate in this war between the two worlds? Seeing this, Lin Feng laughed softly. You've indeed surprised me, but things may not develop as you wish. Lin Feng let out a clear howl toward the sky. In the depths of his void-returned body, the true spirit divine vein flickered, forming a strange and huge force that caused the surrounding dark void to crack open. At this moment, all the stars in the universe seemed to be shaken by this strange and huge force. The orbit of the stars that had been flowing endlessly since ancient times changed at this moment. This power that caused the entire starry sky to shake, even the slightest change was a shocking and boundless power. And this boundless power was affected by Lin Feng's magic power, and it was reflected back to him. The creation divine light on Lin Feng's body shone, and endless black and white splendor surged forth, spreading toward the surroundings like waves. The void above the entire Jade Capital Mountain seemed to be completely enveloped in a sea of black and white light. Within this black and white sea, countless rays of light flickered incessantly, and the void was filled with brilliant characters and diagrams. They were branded into the void, and then gradually disappeared. But the shocking and grand aura of power became more and more intense. At this moment, in the endless dark void, there seemed to be faintly discernible ribbons of light. The ultimate truths of the great Tao seemed to be condensing into a physical form, shaking the heavens and the earth. Lin Feng stood in the void, and the creation divine light surged around his body. He used the heaven and earth reversal technique, and the majestic power forcefully blocked the violent airflow that seemed to engulf the enchantress's true body from exploding. This shocking scene fell into the eyes of the great sage and Zhu Yan, and it sent chills down their spines. Within Lin Feng's eyes, misty splendor flew out from his pupils. These splendor fell into the void and turned into one Tai Chi diagram after another. Black and white blended together, and yin and yang complemented each other. They spun rapidly in the dark void, shining brightly. In the center of each Tai Chi diagram, there seemed to be a figure sitting upright, both hands forming a seal. Many Tai Chi diagrams, many figures, and many spells stood side by side in the starry sky. Then, together, they struck their palms toward the galaxy of the universe, shouting in unison, "Go!" The trajectories of the billions of stars and galaxies all twisted, and the changes became greater and greater. The majestic power it contained also became more and more powerful, as if the entire boundless universe was shaking and had its own will. At this moment, it gradually opened its eyes and looked down on all living beings. Lin Feng stretched out his left palm, spreading his fingers and stretching them forward, as if he was pushing something away. His cosmos-reversing divine art erupted with power far beyond anything he'd ever unleashed in the past, forcibly blocking the spatial turbulence created by the heavenly enchantress. At the same time, Lin Feng pointed with his right finger, and tiny light spots flew out one after another. They were incomparably small, like grains of dust. A total of 49 grains of dust appeared between heaven and earth. With a loud rumble, they swallowed and spat out huge power. They expanded and turned into endless light, as if they were real worlds. It was Lin Feng's yin and yang dust divine ability. The 49 mustard seeds turned into Mount Sumeru, the yin and yang dust divine ability that used dust to carry heaven and earth expanded together at this moment. Together with the universe reversing divine ability, it locked down the demonic aura that was still crazily wreaking havoc in front of it like a tide beating against a dam. Then, Lin Feng raised his right hand high, and the ferocious sword will and sword chi once again turned into the terrifying heaven punishment sword formation. The index and middle fingers of his right hand stood side by side like a sword, and he slashed down at the raging waves. The raging waves of demon aura that were blocked by the heaven and earth reversal technique and the yin and yang dust technique, under the fierce attack of the Tao-destroying sword, also began to be gradually annihilated. The attack of the heaven punishment sword formation was like splitting the sky and the sea. It broke through the raging waves forcefully and slashed toward the demon soul of the enchantress, who was protected by the 12 sacred heavens flower formation. Behind the raging waves, the 12 sacred heavens flower formation was still working, but it was also affected by the self-destruction of the true body of the enchantress, and temporarily became depressed. In the formation, the dark clouds that had been blasted apart were still gathering at this moment, and there were faint shadows floating in the dark clouds. For the enchantress, in addition to losing her true body, the undying demon soul was also damaged by the self-destruction of the true body. At this moment, she was barely activating the 12 sacred heavens flower formation to transform into the time and space reversal technique to escape from this place, but Lin Feng had already broken through the thistles and thorns, and once again attacked in front of her. Lin Feng stared at the time and space reversal technique, and the light in his eyes suddenly changed, turning into the extreme cosmic light. His gaze was like the long river of time, and it fell on the time and space reversal technique. Being engulfed by the light, the time and space reversal technique immediately paused, and the terrifying attack of the heaven punishment sword formation had already cut on the demon formation. Immediately, the broken light flew all over the sky. The shadow in the dark clouds let out a soft sigh. Master of the Celestial Sect of Wonders, good move. Did you always hold back in the past, or did your strength improve by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time? As the enchantress sighed, a strange door suddenly appeared in the dark clouds. The door opened, and light and shadow flashed inside the door, shining with starlight, as if it led to the melodious desolate ancient sea of stars. It was the Star Sea Gate that the enchantress controlled. Although Lin Feng controlled 3 Star Sea Gates, and the demon clan was destined to be unable to open the Star Tomb, it was still a great opportunity and capital for the demon clan to be able to enter the Star Sea to cultivate at any time. The enchantress destroyed her true form and kept the Star Sea Gate. On one hand, it was because she was talented, and on the other hand, the Star Sea Gate was really important for the demon clan's cultivation. Over the years, the enchantress had gathered a large number of demon clan experts, and her strength had been growing, and the Star Sea Gate had helped her a lot. Not long ago, she had witnessed the Golden Rock Sage take the initiative to drop the Star Sea Gate that he controlled, and thus seek to escape from Lin Feng. She did not expect that it would be her turn so soon. Thinking back to the time when Lin Feng's Dharma went to the Spirit Abyss Mountain, the original purpose was to attract her and the Golden Rock Sage to appear, and then seize their Star Sea Gate. But at this moment, the enchantress could only sigh helplessly, and also took the initiative to drop her Star Sea Gate. Under the enchantress's control, a large amount of starlight gushed out of the huge gate, but it did not attack Lin Feng, but wrapped around the Star Sea Gate itself, and the gate gradually became illusory. A powerful force spread out, helping the time and space will magic array to shake off Lin Feng's celestial pole cosmic light, and then the time and space will magic array immediately operated to the extreme, turning into a pillar of light that connected to the sky, sweeping up the enchantress and disappearing into the void. Lin Feng's expression was calm, and he opened his right palm, and the illusory gate condensed back into a solid body, falling into his palm. This was the fourth star sea gate that Lin Feng controlled. Chapter 1196. While Lin Feng and the enchantress were fighting, the demonic power of the divine abyss mountain below surged wildly. Although the Great Sage and Zhu Yan Great Saint were affected by the sky-severing sealed boundary, they still had powerful combat power as long as they didn't leave the divine abyss mountain. They naturally didn't want the enchantress to die at Lin Feng's hands. The death of the enchantress would not benefit them at all. The giant ape formed by the demonic power of the divine abyss mountain let out a deep roar that spread far away in the void. It was shocking. The giant ape's hands were even gradually lifting up Yujing Mountain. Seeing this, Lin Feng pointed lightly with his fingers. 49 yin and yang motes fell down. It was as if 49 mustard seed worlds were supporting Yujing Mountain at the same time. As he stabilized Yujing Mountain and the yin and yang life and death formation, Lin Feng looked up at the void. There, the wonderful wheel of time and space formation turned into a pillar of light that broke through the space-time and swept up the enchantress's demonic soul. At this moment, it had already disappeared, and only the last trace could be seen. Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. If my previous guess is correct, she decided to give up the present, plot for the future, and withdraw from this war between the two realms. Is it because she has sensed something? No, it shouldn't be. Otherwise, she wouldn't have reacted like this. Maybe it's just an intuition. If that's the case, things are likely to be as I guessed before. Shaking his head, Lin Feng didn't continue to think about it. Instead, he put away the star sea gate in his hand. After refining this star sea gate, Lin Feng had almost gained control of more than half of the star sea. Although he couldn't control the power of the star sea, the resources in the star sea were almost at his and Xianmen Tianzong's disposal. Even the gate of star of the heavenly charm Great Sage has been seized, the number of gates of star that Lin Feng now has reached 4. There was a total of 6 star sea gates. Obtaining one of them would allow one to enter and exit the desolate ancient star sea. But if one person controlled more star sea gates, the meaning would be completely different. With 3 starry sea gates gathered, they could forcefully close the other starry sea gate. If all 4 starry sea gates were gathered, they would be able to freely open the star graveyard and harvest star remains from within. Previously, Lin Feng had obtained 3 star sea gates from the White Tiger Sage, the Omnipotent Sage, and the Golden Rock Sage. Apart from being able to close other people's gates, it also meant that no one else could open the star tomb without him. And right now Lin Feng himself controls 4 star sea gates, which means that he can open the star tomb at will. Even though after the last time the star tomb needed a longer time to nurture large amounts of star remains, but for Lin Feng, the initiative was already completely in his hands. On the Spirit Abyss Mountain, the Omnipotent Sage and Zhu Yan Great Sage stared at the star sea gate in Lin Feng's hand, their eyes full of envy. The Great Sage's eyes were full of resentment. In the desolate ancient star sea, it was Lin Feng who took the star sea gate that belonged to the primordial demon ape clan. Lin Feng had cut off the primordial demon ape clan's access to the desolate ancient star sea. The impact was huge. The Great Sage's prestige in the primordial demon ape clan was seriously damaged. If he had not been strong enough and had a strong foundation, his position as clan leader might have been shaken. In the past few years, the Great Sage had been looking for the Enchantress and Golden Rock Saint. He wanted the Star Sea Gate in their hands. But because the Enchantress and Golden Rock Saint had been in seclusion most of the time before the war between the two realms, he had not found anything. The Enchantress's Star Sea Gate was right in front of him, but he could only look at it. He could not get it. What made him even more depressed was that the new owner of the Star Sea Gate was Lin Feng. And it just so happened that he was currently trapped by the sky-severing sealed realm. Even if he wanted to throw caution to the wind and have a great battle with Lin Feng, he also did not have the strength to do so. Possessing the Spirit Abyss Mountain ancestral land, he could only protect himself. As if sensing the Great Sage's anger, Lin Feng looked down at the Spirit Abyss Mountain and shook his head with a smile. The Enchantress's self-destruction of his true form caused an extremely violent turbulence. But because it was instantaneous, it lasted for a short period of time. Although the demonic power and spiritual chi were still chaotic, it was not as violent as before. The Spirit Abyss Mountain, under the influence of the black light, gradually began to distort time and space, merging back into the vast thousand domains of Infinite Mainland. At this moment, the affected areas of Infinite Mainland were still chaotic and barren. There were broken rifts everywhere, as if a corner of the entire vast thousand domains had been torn apart. But with the return of the Spirit Abyss Mountain, all the chaos began to be controlled again. The densely packed rifts began to heal at an accelerated rate, gradually restoring the original scene of the Bright Sky Road. But it was only the world that had been stabilized. The destroyed creatures and the broken mountains could not be restored. There was only a scene of desolation. Lin Feng looked at the gradually falling Spirit Abyss Mountain and chuckled. He landed on Yujing Mountain again. The yin and yang life and death array, together with Ding of Shenzhou, turned into a small light spot and returned to Lin Feng's glabella. The branches and leaves of the mysterious sky treasure tree on the towering immortal mountain swayed and trembled. It broke through the void and the huge white jade immortal mountain gradually disappeared. The omnipotent sage and the great saint of Zhuyan defended the Spirit Abyss Mountain to the death and did not come out. If Lin Feng wanted to forcefully attack, not to mention whether or not he could break through, the time would not be short. And now the overall situation of the war between the two worlds was changing rapidly. He could not continue to tangle with these two great ape demons here. And under the effect of the heaven interception boundary, the two of them could not think of continuing to cause trouble while Lin Feng was away for a short period of time. The Great Sage and Zhu Yan Great Sage watched the figure of Lin Feng leaving with Yujing Mountain. They were expressionless and livid, but there was nothing they could do. If they left the protection of the Spirit Abyss Mountain, their demon souls and true bodies would immediately be separated, and their strength would be greatly reduced. They could only wait patiently. Let's see how long this heaven interception boundary of yours can trap me. The Great Sage clenched his teeth, and sharp and huge fangs emerged from his mouth. He was like an active volcano that could erupt at any time. Zhu Yan Great Sage, who was beside him, was also depressed and filled with anger. He had thought that the return of Yudu would definitely force Lin Feng to return, and he would be able to leave Spirit Abyss Mountain without any scruples to find trouble with Mount Shu. Who knew that he would still be trapped in Spirit Abyss Mountain and unable to go out? Leaving behind the two depressed great demons of the ape race, Lin Feng drove Yujing Mountain and moved through the void, returning to the world of the human race in the divine land. His expression was calm. In front of him floated 4 huge gates in the void, and faint starlight flickered above the gates. At the beginning of the war between the two worlds, Lin Feng's initial strategic goal was to find a way to take the Gate of the Sea of Stars from the hands of the Golden Rock Great Sage and the Enchantress. Until today, this initial goal had been achieved. But until now, strange changes had occurred one after another, making it difficult for Lin Feng to relax. If one were to say that the birth of the future star constellation Glazed Buddha Lord wasn't something to be concerned about at the moment, the sudden changes in the Great Void Temple in the Mysterious Sea and the Yuda clan's return to the world of the living were undoubtedly urgent matters at hand. On the way back to the Divine Land, bad news came one after another. First, after the Yudu race reappeared in the vast land of Infinite Wasteland, they immediately went to the base of the Taishu Temple in this world of the demon race, Taihua Mountain. After careful consideration, the elder of the Taishu Temple, Venerable Xian Yi, who was stationed at Taihua Mountain, finally chose to give up on Taihua Mountain. All the cultivators of the Taishu Temple returned to White Cloud Mountain. The difference in defense power between these two places was huge. Although it was a pity to give up Taihua Mountain, Venerable Xian Yi still made a quick decision. White Cloud Mountain and Taihua Mountain were directly connected by a realm passage. Under the leadership of Venerable Xian Yi, the Taishu Temple used their last resort to forcibly annihilate this small realm passage. Since the war between the two worlds, the blessed land of Taihua Mountain, which had been occupied by the Taishu Temple, was completely destroyed. But whether it was Lin Feng or the others, no one had any objections to this. Although Venerable Xian Yi's choice seemed weak and made him lose his prestige, it was actually the most rational decision at the moment. It was a good idea to defend against the enemy outside the country's gates, but they had to have enough power to support it. With most of the strong practitioners of the Taishu Temple and the Haotian Mirror entering the mysterious sea and unable to come out, the Taishu Temple had no choice but to avoid the sharp edge of the Yuta clan. At the same time, the Taishu Temple also sent valuable information. Other than the new clan master of the Yuta clan, 12 fantasy sons, there were at least 2 great Yuta demons in the last days realm accompanying them. With such a formation, even if Venerable Xianyi defended White Cloud Mountain, he would still be under heavy pressure, let alone facing the enemy at Taihua Mountain. After the Taishu Temple took the initiative to give up Taihua Mountain and retreat to the Divine Land, the strong practitioners of the Yuta clan also went straight for the Divine Land. Along the way, other than the humans who happened to be in their way being easily killed, the Yuta clan didn't care about the other human cultivators who were fighting and couldn't dodge in time. After entering the Divine Land, their target was where the mountain gate of the Taishu Temple was, White Cloud Mountain. The Yuta clan had returned, and the Taishu Temple had lost Taihua Mountain. However, from the looks of it, there weren't too many casualties. The other piece of news was truly a nightmare. Kun Dragon King and Jade Sky Dragon King led a group of strong practitioners of the dragon race out of the mysterious sea and blocked the great Qin dynasty in Heaven Wasteland. Even though Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Heavenly Dipper of Mount Shu came to their aid, Qin Emperor Stone Feather still died on the spot. Even the immortal Dragon City was lost in the void. The great Qin dynasty's retreat from the war between the two worlds was already a foregone conclusion. However, in comparison, there were still some exchanges. Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Heavenly Dipper withstood the pressure from Kun Dragon King and killed Jade Sky Dragon King. Their names shook heaven origin, and this made Lin Feng feel happy for his disciple. The opposition between the known and the unknown. Xiaoyi has indeed walked out of his path of 2 rights. Lin Feng sat on Jade Capital Mountain with his eyes closed. The scripture of heavenly Tao virtue circulated as though it was one with the great Tao of heaven. He felt the feedback from the Tao. It's different from my path of 2 rights, and it's also different from little Lin's path of defying fate and fate. However, it's equally exciting. Good. Very good. While Lin Feng was pleased, the sudden change in the great Qin dynasty made him frown. Not mentioning the death of Stone Feather, even the immortal Dragon City is lost. In this case, the situation in the Divine Land will probably change. Chapter 1197. In the past, Zhu Yi had established his Tao with the principles of light and darkness. As he continued to cultivate and understand the Tao of heaven and earth, new changes occurred. Light turned into light, darkness turned into obscurity, and darkness changed to deduce the principles of heaven and earth. Light referred to things that were clear, visible, and could be understood. Obscurity referred to things that were obscure, invisible, incomprehensible, and unperceivable. The combination of the two was actually the opposition and unity between the known and the unknown, the visible and the invisible. Even with the development of the cultivation world, there were still countless things that were unknown. There was no end to learning. In the process of continuous exploration and learning, people would turn the unknown into the known. They would use various methods to sense the things and principles that they could not understand in the past, and grasp the things and principles that they could not grasp in the past. This was the process of the Tao of Tao constantly advancing. The unknown was understood as the known, and the known extended to even more unknowns. The two were endless and contained everything that was known and unknown. This Tao of Yin and Yang was the path and direction of Zhu Yi's cultivation in the future. At this moment, he had successfully cleared the fog in front of him and officially stepped onto this path. He had successfully taken his first step. If he continued to move forward with his head held high, his future would be limitless. Compared to Zhu Yi's achievement of killing the Blue Sky Dragon King under the pressure of the Kun Dragon King and the mysterious sea receiving ritual, Lin Feng was more happy and comforted about his understanding of the Tao. However, while comforting his disciple, Lin Feng also sighed about the great Qin dynasty's misfortune. In a sense, the death of Emperor Qin Stonefeather and the loss of the immortal Dragon City were very unnecessary. It was a result that was completely unexpected and made people feel helpless at the same time. Shi Xingyun was actually the reincarnation of the remnant soul of the primordial heavenly dragon Jin. This was also out of Lin Feng's expectations. Stonefeather sacrificed it to the immortal dragon city, but a huge accident happened because Shi Xingyun had yet to form an essence soul. This was something that no one, including Stonefeather himself, had expected. Zhu Yi had comprehended his Tao of Yin and Yang and a new mystique under the pressure of the Kun Dragon King and the other dragon race experts. There was no room for tricks. If Sword Sovereign Astral Dipper had arrived a moment earlier, the Qin Emperor's Stonefeather would not have been forced to carry out the dragon's soul sacrifice in advance, resulting in the subsequent accidents. But in reality, Sword Venerable Tiangong's participation in the battle was outside of everyone's plans. No matter who it was, no one could blame Sword Venerable Celestial Dipper. Otherwise, it would be an unreasonable act of anger. However, for the cultivators of the great Qin dynasty, who were under heavy pressure, some of the younger generation might not be able to think so calmly. Even Zhu Yi's breakthrough in the midst of battle and his efforts to turn the tide might be perceived by some as him deliberately holding back his strength and harboring unfathomable motives. When one was under great pressure, venting one's anger on others was often the simplest way to relieve the pressure. Although it was completely useless in reality and would even bring more trouble, there would always be people who would never get tired of it. This was human nature. Lin Feng did not care too much. He also felt pity for the great Qin dynasty's misfortune. In recent years, Lin Feng could vaguely sense that while the relationship between the great Qin dynasty and his Xianmen Tianzong was still very friendly, the higher-ups of the great Qin dynasty, led by the Qin Emperor Stonefeather, probably had very complicated feelings. On one hand, the relationship between the two had always been friendly and close. On the other hand, Xianmen Tianzong's strength, influence were all growing at a shocking and unbelievable speed. To the great Qin dynasty, how to position their relationship with Xianmen Tianzong had become an increasingly important problem. At the same time, it also gave them a headache. When it came to the position of the Qin Emperor Stonefeather and the great Qin dynasty, Lin Feng would be the first to not believe that they were willing to be under someone else. If the Qin Emperor Stonefeather was willing to be under someone else, it would have been impossible for him to form an alliance with Xianmen Tianzong, the Purple Sky Path, the Northern Militant Royal Court, and even the great Zhou dynasty, who had always been at odds with him, to resist the arrangements that Taishu Temple had made for the human world of the Divine Land. The Zhou Emperor Liang Pan was also a similar person, which was why there was such a thing back then. However, with the Battle of Yingxi and the Battle of Xian Extermination, the situation of the Divine Land had been constantly changing, causing the great Zhou dynasty's position to gradually shift. Perhaps their external styles were different, but in essence, whether it was the Qin Emperor Stonefeather or the Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, they were the same person. Back then, the Qin Emperor Stonefeather had resolutely joined the alliance to resist the arrangements of Taishu Temple. As Xianmen Tianzong continued to grow stronger, his opinion of Xianmen Tianzong became more and more complicated. This was something to be expected. Improving the great Qin dynasty's strength had always been the goal of the Qin Emperor Stonefeather and the experts of the great Qin dynasty. Opportunities had to be fought for by themselves, and at the same time, opportunities were often accompanied by danger. This required the decision-makers to devise strategies themselves. The war between the two worlds undoubtedly contained great danger and opportunity. In the previous war, when the Taishu Temple had entered the Xianhai Sea and Lin Feng had been in the Spirit Abyss Mountain, the great Qin dynasty had been unstoppable in the infinite wilderness continent. Everything seemed to be developing in a good direction, but in the next moment, the situation suddenly took a turn for the worse. Lin Feng could roughly guess the thoughts of the Qin Emperor Stonefeather and the others. This was considered human nature. However, in his opinion, the great Qin dynasty and the Qin Emperor Stonefeather were slightly impatient in the war between the two worlds. Although they were not as bold as the Golden Rock Sage, they were still not as calm as Stonefeather had previously appeared. The cruelty of the war between the two worlds was on full display at this moment. One wrong step could lead to a bottomless abyss. The great Qin dynasty now had 1 foot over the edge of the cliff. The Qin Emperor Stonefeather had died, the immortal dragon city had been lost, the Dao integration realm expert Shi Zhongmao had been seriously injured, and the other top experts of the Great Qin dynasty, such as the Anliang monarch Shi Zhongyue and the Jingfang monarch Shi Lin, had also died in battle. The power of the Great Qin dynasty had been reduced by more than half compared to before the war. The only top expert left was the Nanming King Shi Zongtang, who had stayed behind to guard West Hill City. The Qin Emperor Stonefeather had died, and his son, the crown prince of the Great Qin dynasty, Shi Chongyun, was only at the later stages of the Yuanying realm. He had yet to form his primordial spirit. If it was during normal times, he might still be able to do something, but now that the war between the two worlds was happening, it was destined that he would not be able to take on such a big responsibility. It was hard to predict what the Great Qin dynasty would do next. Although Zhu Yi and Sword Venerable Tiangang guarded the realm passage in the southern wasteland together and blocked Shin Dragon King who had replaced Kun Dragon King, the crisis of the Great Qin dynasty was not completely resolved. The main target of the Yudu race's descent into the Divine Land was the White Cloud Mountain, but the other powers of the human race could not be careless either. Under such circumstances, what would the Great Zhou dynasty do next would be something that people would be very concerned about. Launching an attack on the Great Qin dynasty during the war between the two worlds to take advantage of the situation was something that the Great Zhou dynasty might not do. However, if they really had such thoughts, there were other, gentler methods that they could think of. That was the qi of the dragon vein of all living beings in the Divine Land. During the war between the two worlds 4,000 years ago, the Great Zhou dynasty had yet to rise up and was just a small country at the border of the Great Qin dynasty. At that time, the Great Qin dynasty controlled most of the secular territory of the Divine Land and gathered the qi of the dragon vein of the entire Divine Land in West Hill City. They displayed great power during the war. After the war between the two worlds, the Great Qin dynasty fell into a low while the Great Zhou dynasty gradually rose up. When it reached the generation of the Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, the momentum of the Great Zhou dynasty's rise was completely unleashed. They became a powerful dynasty that was on equal footing with the Great Qin dynasty. There was a period of time when their national power was even above the Great Qin dynasty. During this process, the Tianjing city and the Great Zhou dynasty forcefully split the qi of the dragon vein that was originally flowing towards West Hill City and the Great Qin dynasty. In the recent years, as the west wind suppressed the east wind again, the Great Zhou dynasty retreated and the Great Qin dynasty regained the upper hand. The Great Qin dynasty had always been trying to take back the qi of the dragon vein that ruled over all living beings in the divine continent. Now, the Great Qin dynasty naturally could not continue with its previous plans. However, as the west wind declined and the east wind rose again, it was likely that the Great Zhou dynasty would be thinking about the Great Qin dynasty. The Great Qin dynasty had lost both the Qin Emperor Shi Yu and the immortal dragon city. Even though they could choose a new emperor to inherit the qi of the dragon vein, it would still take time for them to completely control the qi of the dragon vein. Moreover, from a completely neutral point of view, after losing the immortal dragon city, the person with the highest cultivation in the Great Qin dynasty was Nanming King Shi Zongtang, who was at the same Dao integration realm as the Qin Emperor Shi Yu. However, the effect of his control over the qi of the dragon vein was evidently inferior to that of the Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, who had the Grand Imperial Palace. This was under the situation where the Zhou Emperor Liang Pan and the Grand Imperial Palace alone held the qi of the dragon vein. If the qi of the dragon vein was gathered together, the power would naturally be even greater. Today, when Yuda descended on the Divine Land, the entire Divine Land was facing a massive crisis. However, danger and opportunity always existed together. To the Zhou Emperor Liang Pan, while facing danger, there was undoubtedly a massive opportunity. The environment of the war between the two worlds would restrict the internal conflicts between the strong powers of the human race, but it could also become the most suitable excuse. They would say that it was an emergency and they were borrowing it temporarily, but the result was that they would never return it. The only good news for the current Great Qin dynasty was that even though they had participated in the war between the two worlds, they didn't have a huge grudge with the Yudu race. More accurately speaking, the Great Qin dynasty had suffered heavy losses under the hands of the dragon race and Yudu race, which led to their decline. In recent years, before the war between the two worlds, they gradually showed signs of revival. Speaking of grudges, it should be the Great Qin dynasty that hated the Yudu race. However, at this moment, they definitely wouldn't provoke the Yudu race. On the contrary, even though the Great Qin dynasty was in an abnormally weak state, the Yudu race's main target was still White Cloud Mountain. Lin Feng sat on Jade Capital Mountain. As he flew through the air, he kept thinking about the current situation.